Well, it looks like everything is set up, so we're gonna start this meeting of the Jericho Select Board at 6:53. Looks close enough to me. And as usual, when we first start, is the public to be heard, and this is for anyone who has something to say that is not on the agenda. Do we have anyone either online or I recognize Jim Carroll.
Moving quickly. Apologize, one of the exhibits didn't get through the photocopy.
Thank you, Jim.
I would try to be pleasant, although this is not a tight subject. The town has a contract with the property owners that are involved here called a settlement agreement, and it's a stipulated final judgment of the court. And in section 10, it says if there's a dispute prior to initiation of any action, that the parties will mediate. And this is noticed formally, which I've given informally multiple times. There is a dispute. The contract has been triggered. And it's material, it's substantive. And we are encouraging the select board to resolve to have informal discussions and resolve it without causing the town to incur considerable expense, but I'll read it to you. The parties agree hereto, in the event of any dispute, to request mediation substantially in accordance with Rule 16.3 of the Vermont Rules of Civil Procedure prior to commencing any suit or action to enforce or that otherwise pertains or relates to this agreement. The parties have a dispute, and participating in mediation shall share equally in all costs and fees of such mediation. This is formal notice. The contract has in fact been triggered tonight. The next step, if there's not a positive response from the select board, is to file a motion with the court ordering the select board to comply with the contract. I think that's a wasteful, unnecessary action. I think that this just basically requires clarity, discussion to resolve. There's been many changes, circumstances have evolved, but this is in fact the contract. And it's many other things, but it's pretty black and white that section 10 is clear. It requires both parties to work together, and I don't want to take up any more time. I'm available to discuss it, and I apologize, but this is the amount of work that's been done by other people, and the copies, the second page of this. John has a full copy of all of that, and he has concluded that it's not his job to deal with this, and he's backed out of any further negotiations. So that's my spiel.
Well, thank you for your time, Jim. Is there any other public to be heard over there or in here? I don't see any. Given that the first item of business is to review and consider a road waiver from Mr. William Fogg.
Hi.
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 Nice.
So we're the builders of Norton Way,
Okay.
which is out of the foothills. It's a 4-lot subdivision. We built 3 of the houses. We're currently putting together an HOA to be able to transfer over the community land, the common lands. Apart from that, there was a request. We're getting ready to finish up the paving on the private driveway that services the 3 houses. It is spec for 20-foot wide. There was a request at 14.6, and I think I just sent John today requesting a reduction in thickness from 3 inches to 2.5 inches and a narrowing down from 20 to 16 feet. So that was the driveway request change from the original plan. The second request for change, which I don't think made on the bylaws, but it's to change the trees. There's 25 trees that are required and they were Austrian pines. And Rob Shantz has given me a good quote. He says that Norway or white spruce would fare better in that soil. So he's done some work up there, I think, for one of the homeowners or maybe more, but. So he has given me a quote. I think I forwarded it to Paula today. I don't know if you've got a chance to look at it, but. So he's proposing, I'd like to change the 25 trees to either white or Norway spruce, whatever is available this time of year. From Austrian pines. Those are the two requests.
I was looking at your maps and you've got a driveway that's going to the three houses,
Yes.
but it goes past some existing houses. Is that still part of the subdivision as well, or is it different homeowners or things like that?
The driveway, there's a house on either side of the drive.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are just separate from, and they're not going to access that driveway.
No, they have their own direct access off the foothills.
Now, is there any potential for future development in that area using that driveway?
No,
Okay.
So if it, the town engineer weighed in on this, as I
Yes.
understand it, and he was, he thought the request met the requirements that we have specified. And as I understand it, the fire department, though, took exception
Yeah.
to the standard itself.
Yes.
So in other words, if he built it to the standard that was specified in that book, that was specified in the guidelines, the fire department wouldn't support that.
No.
Oh, by the way, over the last couple of years, when we have talked about smaller kinds of development, we have sometimes settled on this 18-foot number,
Right.
which the fire department does approve of, but yet that 18 is not enshrined in the regulations.
No, we've
Therein
actually,
lies the rub.
yeah, because we've done the waivers on those.
We have been slowly
Yes.
establishing, not in the most
Yeah.
regulatory way, but we have slowly been establishing this 18-foot
For smaller.
In a couple of instances, I don't think there was a lot of them.
No.
There's a couple of them. And so if you in fact met that 18,
fine, 18's fine.
I'm just saying that my understanding from the fire department is they can live with 18.
Okay.
And the vote counts a lot. So
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if I was putting it the wrong way. but
no, I
my
think that's, that's what we've done. And the key is, we have a note from the fire chief saying he really doesn't like going down from the 20 on this case, because he said there's a limited, he says he would not be in favor of granting the waiver request. There is limited water supply in this area, and a fire will require a tanker shuttle. That's the word I was trying to remember, shuttle. That's why I decided to read it. And we need all the road width we can, because he wants to be able to have two tankers going up and down rather than coming out at the bottom and then having to circle up. And if the waiver is granted, and this is what we have to let you know, he said, if the waiver is granted, we will have to send a letter removing our ability to serve the houses located on the road. And that's a significant,
That's a deal.
Sure,
breaker.
yeah, no.
That's
don't
a-
grant it.
that's a
Don't-
scary thing.
I guess
That's why
I didn't see, where did that come from? Is that in our packet?
It was in the whole long email string. And we're sorry about that, but we wanted you to know that we've been trying to redo the public works specs for quite a few years, and it hasn't, fits and starts. I haven't gotten grants for that, this, that, or the other thing. So finally, we decided we're gonna just take some ARPA money and do what we need to do, because I agree with you. I don't like to have as much impervious surface and be able to land a small plane on some of these areas where you really don't need it.
Right.
We need to have a cafeteria of ways of utilizing roads and driveways, whether it's small to large. And that way, and people will be able to understand and be able to deal with what's in the regulations rather than our current one size fits all. you know, the zoning allows for the 15-foot driveway, but he wasn't even looking at that one. So we're sorry.
Listen, it's fine, and I just wanted to come and ask, and I appreciate your time on that. And don't approve it, don't grant it, that's good. I want those people taken care of, so that's fine. Can we address the trees?
I don't care about the trees.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the trees don't fall within the public works specification.
I know they don't. I mean,
Oh, it's Chris.
Yeah, I think that would be a DRB.
yeah, it would be Chris and I,
That's not a substantive an issue, so that's not gonna be a.
Okay,
no, I
I
don't,
have a neighbor of this property with their hand up.
I do have a question about the trees.
yes.
Because there was a replacement of the driveway. The driveway to one of the homes is in the area, the right of way, if you will, the buffer zone is the technical term. Because they put the driveway in the buffer zone, I respectfully request that you extend the number of trees to go along that driveway as well. That driveway is closer than what was originally stipulated in the original approved conditions by the board.
Which driveway? Was it the third house?
Yeah,
The white one, the big white one?
yeah.
Um,
If you would consider that,
Absolutely, I'll consider it. I'll have to talk with the homeowner, obviously, it's their property, but it's not the comment, but I'm happy
but
to
you
check.
see, my concern is that the driveway is closer to the fence than was originally provided for in the approved plan.
So it's, well, yeah, I mean, the ditch is there. I mean, the drainage is in place where it should be.
Drainage is in place.
Yeah. So the drainage. I will talk with the owner, the homeowners about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
yeah, we would think that because trees sometimes have to be switched because you can't get one or the other. But as long as you meet the, you know, Chris's signs off on it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. For your time.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And
My daughter will be happy to hear that you're putting trees in, because we used to live in the basically right across from that driveway. And when she found out I was running for select board, she had never mentioned anything, but the fact that a couple trees that I didn't even notice came down as part of that development, she was very upset about. So I'll be able to tell her
Oh, good.
that you're gonna plant some more trees and.
Democracy in action right here.
Yeah,
There you go.
oh, and we should tell
Thank you.
Donna, who spoke from the neighborhood was Brian Stevens. Because we forgot to ask his name.
That's true. I will talk with the folks in that person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next okay, I'll just do it this way. Next, we have review and consider appointing Nathan Ellison for the DEI committee with a term expiring in 2026. Come on up. Nice to meet you, Nathan. You got a nice recommendation from Tom Barabo. He sent a very nice email to us. So tell us a little about yourself and your background, because it seems interesting that you have a first generation American, from your, mother.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
tell us
so-
about this.
I'm a senior right now at MMU. Lived in Jericho my whole life, right next to the community center store. Yeah, I actually pretty recently heard about the DEI committee. I met SJ at an event at across the street from me for like Vermont Digger, and she said there was this committee trying to like make Jericho more inclusive, more open to a wide range of people. And I thought that was really interesting, worthwhile, because I mean, I've lived in Jericho. I've been pretty privileged to have a nice experience here. Meeting all the nice people, like, the nature and all that, but obviously realize that not everyone has that. And I mean, historically for my family, that they haven't had that. And I feel like I could maybe offer like a student perspective and help make Jericho more accessible.
That's great. So that also explains why your SJ is there. Yeah, herself. So you did a double answer, because you even told us about why you're interested in the committee. So
There you had it.
Yeah, I think your perspective would be great.
It would.
Be really welcome.
Yeah.
So before you go off to bigger and better things or whatever you're gonna go to for the next step, I would really appreciate your time and your energy and your passion for making Jericho more inclusive. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was really nice too, because the DEI committee as it was forming was very clear that they wanted to include at least 2 students, to get those perspectives, because we need the ideas of the young coming up that may have experienced a different kind of life.
I like what you said, though, that you've been privileged to live here, but you've also know the challenges, we face in making our community more inclusive. And I really like the recognition that, what we have is pretty privileged. And we've got to make it better for other people too. So thank you so much.
You guys said all the good stuff. I agree. Yeah. Thank you, but seriously, thank you for
Thank you.
joining this committee. It's an important committee and we're proud to have it, and it's gonna do great things. It is doing great things, and will do great things, so.
Does SJ want to say anything or?
I think I better not, because we're in the middle of bedtime, but Nathan has been a great addition to the committee, the couple of meetings he's been there, and we're excited for him to be a full-fledged voting member.
And
Great.
SJ, just to clarify, his term, he'll have the 2 high school students have single-year terms, correct?
Yes.
That is correct. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, so when we were to make a motion, we would just amend that
Yeah,
year date.
because it says 20, it does
So
say,
should we do it through 2024?
or 2025.
Well, you,
No,
It says 26.
you'll be graduating, correct?
Like, yeah,
You're a senior now,
So
so,
2024 then.
yeah. I would-
When you got roped into this, what did you think you were signing up for time wise? Why don't we start with that?
I mean, I was assuming like as a student member, probably, while I was at the high school.
Right, so I'll make a motion to approve Nathan Ellis to join the DEI committee with a term ending in July 1st, 2025.
24.
Oh, you're a senior now, 24
Yeah,
is what I said, okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Well, thank you very much for your service.
I mean, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, the next is a bylaw modernization grant proposal.
Great, so Linda was gonna be here.
He is,
Oh,
there she is.
Linda, you're on, I'm sorry.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Linda.
I admitted her just a little
There
bit ago. Yeah, you're welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So you probably all saw the memo in your packet kind of describing the program. It's called the Bylaw Modernization Program, and it's a relatively new program offered by the State Department of Housing and Community Development, a sort of a companion to the Municipal Planning Grant Program. And the focus of this program is to do zoning and bylaw updates in support of pedestrian-oriented development to increase housing choice and affordability within the village areas. So the Planning Commission at their meeting this week thought it would be a great opportunity to continue a lot of the work in the strategy, implement some of the strategies in the draft town plan. So the application that they approved to forward to you folks is to update the character-based zoning, which is a form-based code. It's an overlay for the Riverside property, and then do an audit of the village center zoning to look at any other changes that we could make to remove any obstacles to producing small and affordable housing in the village centers.
I would,
Go
I was going to suggest that, based on what, the study groups are doing with Act 250 and, realizing the village centers of some of the older villages, are too compact, given the flood zones this year. That you also look into the village surrounding the village centers for ways to increase density, and because that's what's going to probably come out of the legislature this year.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that could be something that is considered as well.
Good, good. Yeah, I just wanted to have that on your radar as you started looking into additional zoning abilities.
Yeah, and we talked
Great, thank
briefly
you.
with Charlie Baker here 2 weeks ago about what he was trying to read the tea leaves and just about the possibility of there being affordable housing PUDs kind of outside of the village districts, and where he thought the legislature was going with this. He didn't give us an affirmative, clear view, but
Yeah, that's why it's looking at village centers, which we have now are very discrete, very tight, is to incorporate the whole of the, essentially, we have the village center, we have the village. It would probably include all the village kind of stuff as well.
Linda, I wanted to ask you, at the risk of sounding like I'm throwing a Molotov cocktail, there's the notion that if the form-based zoning, certainly it was not the primary reason that things haven't happened over at Riverside. There's lots of other factors that we could spend an hour and 3 drinks. But I'm wondering what your sense is about, there's been some discussion, I've talked about it with a couple other people in town, that if the form-based zoning can't be overhauled in a more positive and possibly constructive way, that we just allow it to sunset, and that area then be governed by the more general zoning regulations for the rest of the town. Don't jump off your seat. I'm just mentioning that as a possibility. Again, I don't blame the form-based zoning that I was wildly enthusiastic about and spent many hours over in Riverside when we were having those Planapaloozas, and really felt like there was a mandate, as close as we ever had to a mandate.
Yeah.
In the 25 years I've been involved in town stuff off and on. But I'm not convinced any longer that that degree of specificity is really going to get us what we want. When perhaps our outlook is a little bit different. I just wonder what your take is about that whole notion of sunsetting it. If we don't come up with something by some date certain, boom, we revert to the general zoning regs. What's your take?
Well, I think it's one of those cases where, like, it's true that it is probably overly formulaic for what we actually want to produce in Riverside. Like, it is maybe too micro in terms of the details that it contains, but I think that there are also positive aspects to having it, such as like creating a pedestrian oriented area with mixed use buildings. So I don't think that because there are some things, like you said, that could be changed or improved, that we should necessarily decide to throw the whole thing out.
In other towns, Williston has just formed a form-based code
Right.
for that area, but it has worked quite well. Winooski got theirs approved after we had done ours, and boy, that they did the way they've developed theirs. I mean, they've got a huge amount of development happening in those.
Sure. You look at, Heinsberg, all of St. Albans City, all these places, it's just Mooresville, it's booming. And then you come to our town and it's like
And these have,
moribund,
and these are
the
more,
land that time
these are-
forgot or something.
and these
It's
are
crazy.
form-based codes.
Well, I don't know what the impediments are here or
Yeah.
what the incentives are there, but.
Because I know
it's-
Winooski had, I mean, they came in and boy, Winooski took, it's worked for Winooski in terms of how the idea was, to really have the character rather than the
Sure.
function.
Right.
Dictate what it is.
Right, yeah. Anyway, I thought I would just bring that up.
No, it's good discussion. Any other questions for Linda?
We're good.
So basically, you're just asking for a grant for
I make a motion to for us to apply for the bylaws mechanization
Yeah.
grant.
yeah. But what we have to do is we have to
Money.
you have to talk about, we have to put specific money, and we also have to read the resolution.
What's the local cost share?
Looks like it's 10% of 25,000, so $2,500, is that right?
Well, we approved applying for the grant for a maximum of $25,000. Knowing that, we have a outlay of 10% of that.
Okay, so
Yeah, and
it's
this-
25 to 3,000.
This grant program has a unique incentive to adopt the bylaws that get developed using this funding, is in that if we get an award and we adopt the zoning that comes out of this grant work by December 31st of 2025, they offer match forgiveness, so we wouldn't have to pay the match on it if we adopt the zoning that is developed by the end of the grant term, which is what I would expect to happen, that we would adopt it before the end of 2025.
Yeah, because it says the resolution form is required to be signed by the select board chair. And so since it's a resolution, it really should be read into the record because it's a lot of whereases.
Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
is that?
Yeah, right here.
Okay, perfect. I got to-
I'll just read it because I know what to skip over. It says, whereas the municipality of Jericho is applying for funding as provided in the FY24 Budget Act 78 and may receive an award of funds under said provisions. And whereas the Department of Housing and Community Development may offer a grant agreement to this municipality for said funding, and whereas the municipality is maintaining its efforts to provide total funds for municipal and regional planning purposes, or that the municipality has voted at an annual or special meeting to provide local funds for municipal and regional planning purposes. Now therefore be it resolved, one, that the legislative body of this municipality enters into and agrees to the requirements and obligations of this grant program, including a commitment to match funds in accordance with the program's requirements. Two, that the Municipal Planning Commission recommends applying for said grant, and Susan Breezy, the name of the Planning Commission chair, signed it. That Linda Blash, the town planner, is hereby designated as the grant administrator, the person with the overall administrative responsibility for the bylaw planning grant program activities related to the application and any subsequent grant agreement provisions. If the grant application is successful and funds are awarded, the following individual will be the signatory on behalf of the municipality: John Abbott, town administrator. And then number 5 is that the municipal legislative body recommends that applying for said grant, and that's the body chair is authorized to sign that. Did that enough in the RPC because they have to do, there's a lot of whereases for some of these federal
I
things.
miss all those pizzas at those old RPC meetings.
I know. They've gone to total Zoom. So we need a motion to accept that.
So Wayne, do you want to move what she just said since you had started the motion?
I'm not sure how the motion should read. It's supposed to incorporate this.
Just say,
So moved, I think.
Okay, so moved.
Seconded.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then I get to sign
Okay,
it.
we'll see what Donna does with all that.
Yeah,
I hope you didn't miss any of that, Donna.
Thank you.
actually, you can cut and paste.
Thanks, Linda.
Yes, thank you.
Linda.
Too. Have a good night.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know. You can print it in the other side. I just signed in the first line because that's where this, I signed on the wrong side. I don't think there's a problem. Yeah, because it just says sign. So next, that's very exciting that we're applying for grant because it's really good. Oh, so we have Tom here, we have Jeff here, who's going to do the ADA accessibility. Oh, Lindsay, forget Lindsay. And I knew that Barbara came in late and then Linda over there. I mean. Yeah. So it was nice.
Okay,
Sure.
And while they're coming up, Bill enjoyed sitting next to you, Barbara, at the that little get together at the coffee house.
thank you.
You thought that was nice. You thought that was a nice gathering.
It was a big step in.
You're gonna have to speak into the microphone.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, and it was like, I think yesterday I sent the updated slide deck. Yeah,
And you're gonna go over the structural,
we're not, we are, yes, but it's a kind of a broader piece, but we will be referencing the structural assessment. And we can certainly go over it, and Tom's here. He could add some. But that
Yeah, I
wasn't
can
really
give you
the
a
full
summary. I don't
purpose,
have the
yeah,
document in front of me,
yeah.
but I can give you a summary of what the items we should look at.
Right.
Yeah,
Which,
Yeah.
which is the most salient point, because I've looked at
Yeah.
the report, I think we all have to some degree.
Yeah, read
Right.
it very carefully, made
Want to
notes.
focus on the most important stuff, because it's
Yep.
very comprehensive.
Yeah,
Very,
very comprehensive, and that's a very important thing to work on first. Or in
in conjunction.
in conjunction, yeah,
Right.
and or in conjunction.
That was our original presentation in 12/6/21. I can also send it to you right now if you want.
Because I think Paula must have had it because we have the updated 2020. We have updated data, I think, in this one. Or is this the one that she just left on the
So
table?
this one's from 2020.
I can send her,
Yeah.
if I can get. let's see if I
Yeah.
can do it real quick.
And it had the updated information.
Oh, that would, no, that would be last
Updated.
week.
Oh,
Update.
it's 22. I mean, this
No.
looks like some of the stuff we were looking at though, except pictures.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
Do you want? That one is- no,
yeah.
let me-
I've seen some of this.
Okay,
We want the structural evaluation
no,
onto.
no, just those lines.
Increases.
Like that logo.
All right,
Yeah, it's a nice new logo.
so, back again, my name's Lindsay Hallman. I'm a member of the Jericho Town Library Board, and there's almost all of our board is here or on Zoom. And, tonight, yes, we want to reference the structural assessment, but we also are here to talk about creating an accessible and inclusive space, which is in our Jericho Town Library. And interestingly, we were first slated to be on the agenda 2 weeks ago. And what was interesting about that date was it was the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that act, which I'm sure you're familiar with, ensures the dignity and rights of all members of our community and ensures that they have access to all aspects of community. So that's really the focus, I would say, overall, not to
Yes.
mention the structural component of the building too, which is
Yeah.
an historic building. So next slide, please. Are you okay if I'm just next slide? Okay.
Absolutely. At your service.
Thank you. So you know about our library, you know our mission. I think what's most important to say is that it's a welcoming space that's respectful of all users. And I will say personally that I joined the Jericho Town Library Board, I don't know how many years ago, but because I believe that a library is really the center of equity in a town. Doesn't matter what age, race, faith, ethnicity you are, everyone can access a library. It's free, it's open, it's warm, it has information, it has access. There's programming. So that to me, it feels very, very important to center in this presentation. Another thing that feels really important to say is that according to the data, 28% of the adult population in Vermont has a disability. 14% of those of the population experience upper body limitations. A little over 5% use canes or crutches or walkers, and 1.6 use a wheelchair. So essentially a significant number of Vermonters, and then when we think about our town, are unable to access the second floor of our building, much less the front door of our building. So we are not right now creating an inclusive and accessible place. So we came here originally, I think it was your first meeting, John.
It probably was.
December 6, 2021, with this ask. And was not the first time, obviously,
No.
because there were plans from 2013 and there's been plans for over a decade, right? And so when we came in 2021, the request was to collect some data from the town, which we did. We sent out a survey, we collected a lot of data from our community members. Things to note is that, you know, what they really value, you can see there, but, you know, they value friendly staff and a welcoming, quaint atmosphere, the charming historic building, which we all really value. It's a beautiful historic building. And they also really value the programs for families and children. And we can keep on moving. I know you know all these things. These were some of the words that showed up in the survey as well around what people value in the library space, and same things, community, historic, quaint, welcoming, all those things. And then this is just some more of the qualitative parts of the survey, the data. Keep this resource for the town. It's truly invaluable. It's a wonderful resource for future Jericho families. So when we're thinking future forward about what kind of community we want to have for future generations here, it has a historic role as a library and center for education. It's absolutely part of what makes our life here full and abundant. You know, clearly people really recognize the historic nature. And so they really want us to be able to respond to the accessibility issue by also maintaining the structure of the historic building. This person went as far as to say it's the jewel in the crown of Jericho, which
That's very sweet.
was really sweet. So following along, during that presentation in 2021, we had posed a question around like ARPA funds, and then the town had generously added a question to the survey around using the funds for accessibility ADA projects at the library. I'm not quite sure what the answer to that question was or where that went. So again, that's going to be one of our questions tonight, is like, where's the library in that big picture? And you can keep on keeping there. Because that was really the question. So like there was the ARPA funding for infrastructure support. Where does the library fit into the plan? So from the remainder of 2022 until today, we ended up taking a step back. So you'll recall we came again, and we were really advocating for a full-time library director position because we were having significant turnover of very qualified library directors because we weren't able to keep people in this position because of the lack of benefits and the salary. So we had done some research around comparable town library directors. And it ended up that at town meeting 2023, there was a motion made that allowed us to move forward with hiring our full-time library director, which was it's a huge asset for our library. We also, as you have in front of you, the structural building assessment was completed in February of 2023. We actually did not get the report back until July. So it's fairly new, the report for us. And as you'll see in there, the building is structurally sound, which is great. There are definitely deficiencies. There are some that need to be responded to immediately, as you saw in the report. And then there's some that are more long-term needs. So we want to really prioritize that. And Katie Hill, who did the structural engineer who did the assessment, also said she'd be available to come and share that in more detail with you all, since she is the expert on that assessment. I'll just keep running through the presentation because it's almost done, and then we can have discussion because I think it'll be easier.
You're doing well.
Oh, thank you. Just want to highlight the impact of having a full-time library director. Our circulation, when we look at 2022 to 2023, our circulation has increased by 66%. That's pretty large increase. We've had twice as many programs. The number of daily visits to the library from 2022 to 2023 has doubled. We have 38 new patrons that have signed up for a new library card. 45 programs were offered in July and August versus 21 in July and August of last year. And our average number of daily visits continues to increase. And we see that, you know, we expect the circulation and program attendance to continue to increase based on the trends in the data.
Right.
Yes, you can, I think I already talked about that. And then this is not new. This is the plan from 2014, which includes the ramp, the lift, so that people can access the upstairs. I should mention the upstairs, you know, is a community space. It's also a maker space. It also is a space for programming. It has so many possibilities for bringing people together. Right now, it is very inaccessible, as many of you know who have been to the library. We clearly have a bathroom issue right now, but more so, we need an ADA accessible bathroom on both floors. It would allow us to expand in certain areas to create a more sustainable building, an environmentally sound building. And when I met with Andrea Murray, who did the architect who drew the plans up in 2014. I talked with her November of 22. She confirmed this is a shovel-ready project. We have the plans, the shovel-ready project. Yes, that's the cost estimate from 2014. Yes, material costs have gone up, but we do not have to spend money on the plans or any of that piece. Is a shovel-ready project. So this is just kind of a checklist of the things that we've done. We just want to show that we've done our due diligence to really collect the voices of the townspeople around what their thoughts and feelings are for the library now and in the future. We contacted the architect who did the original plans, or the plans that we are sharing tonight with from 2014 around the viability of the plan. We advocated for a full-time library director. We have conducted the structural evaluation. We actually applied for and received a grant to support that work. So the next steps really are, I know it would have been nice for us to come tonight and say we need X number of dollars from the town. We just can't ask, we don't know a number because we know what the project is likely going to cost. There are many grants that we can apply for and we are working on those, but a lot of them require matching funds from municipalities or other funders. And so we just need to understand what would the select board, what is the town willing to commit to this project, thinking about both the ARPA funding and other funds. And we are also including a specific item in our annual appeal, which is launching very soon. So people can donate directly to the accessibility project. And then we're just continuing to pursue grants. And the last thing I will just say is, in looking at, so last time we referenced the town plan from 2020 around how it aligns with the goals and the vision for the town. And we took a look at the draft 2024 town plan. And, again, I just want to highlight is the plan is to help create the places and physical conditions where the social interactions can take place. The library is that place. And not only does the library need to be accessible, it needs to be a place where we can offer more for our community. So I think that is where, Jeff, anything you want to add to?
No, I think that was very well done and very clear. If you want, we could go over some specifics of the structural audit. But it's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to hear any of that right now or from the structural or?
I don't need to right now, only because,
Okay.
I mean, I took my highlighter to this.
Yeah, I wrote notes too. Do you need the
I haven't
structure?
had a chance to review the structure. I skimmed it.
Mhm.
But I don't need to see the structural piece
Okay.
now. I can certainly look at that on my own.
Well, as you know, the town has a lot of obligations right now and needs, and we're going to have to talk about a new garage as well as, but we had, I don't know if you've heard, when Wayne did his last presentation of how we spent the ARPA funds, we put aside $100,000 for the town library. And that was to, we set aside $100,000 of our ARPA funding because we knew that you needed to have things done.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know how much things are going to cost, but we figure $100,000 will get you started to prioritize. Because when we did our ARPA survey, people did support the ADA accessibility, but there was far less support for the full $750,000 project.
Sure.
And that's because they're looking to have other things too. With
Yes.
the ARPA funding. Plus, we are very fortunate. We have two, most towns only have one library. We have two. We even looked at how the spending, matched whether we were spending more for two than we were, some towns. But it wasn't too bad a mix in terms of funding. But we know that ADA accessibility is, and it may require because of the structural needs, and that needs to be addressed is, you know, obviously, so the building doesn't fall down now. You know, that's an important factor, and you need to get off of the kerosene that you're heating with, for sure. And, you know, Jeff, it's, you know, is off on the MERP projects and stuff following that, so. But they haven't put money to that one yet, just the audits and the walkthroughs and things like that. But this way, you may have to go back even further than this particular ground ready project, because it started long before this one came along, because we had three different projects that came to us to look at. And, you know, there was pros and cons to each one of them, but, you know, at least it provided ADA accessibility. And then the plans morphed into this larger project.
Do you have a sense of what portion of there was three-quarters of a million in 2014. Let's assume it's $1 million.
Yeah, I would.
Right.
So do you have a sense of what the portion would be just strictly for the ADA kind of work?
I don't think we can give you a number. I'm off the top of our head. We would really have to like go back. But one thing that we've talked a lot about as a board, and I would encourage other board members to chime in, is that once you start like the Band-Aid approach of creating ADA accessibility. So like, first of all, the whole front's going to have to be redone because the door is not large enough, right? You're going to need to have an entrance. You're going to need to be able to have a lift to the second floor. You're going to need to have ADA accessible. Once you start like pulling back those layers, you're going to find more and more things, right? And it's like, we can Band-Aid, right? And that's fine, you know, and we have talked about that a lot as a board. We can Band-Aid it. We can do the things to get it up to ADA accessibility. But I think we're not addressing the, like some of the core components, and we might end up having further, you know, projects, which could be a multi-stage piece, but you know, I don't know if that's going to cause more of an issue to have it in.
It's probably better to have multi-stage, because at this point, you know, because that was a very, very nice 2-story addition with layers on both additions. That's probably something that's not going to float at the moment because of all the other expenses.
Right.
So we need to fix the building to make it as strong as it can, and then and integrate ADA accessibility into it. If someday down the road, you know, somebody falls into money, or there's some big grants that you can add onto the building, then that's what happens then.
And so what I'm hearing is that the town has set aside $100,000 from ARPA funds for the Jericho Town Library Accessibility Project.
Whatever it needs, yes, to get that, you know, for the ADA and looking at the structure and
we didn't say use it for this thing. We just kind of set it aside for
$100,000. Okay, just want to make sure we're
available.
Pardon?
What's the timing for those funds?
We have to have it.
Yeah, depends on who you vote for select board.
How do you define accessibility? Are you defining it as just being able to get into the building? Or
well, we had, you know, and they worked with ADA people, the ADA architect in this large addition. And it took into account what you needed to do to make it comfortable for people. And some people didn't like it because the lift was outside, much like it is in the Essex Library. But that was the most expensive, but it also was the more comprehensive of the 3 plans at that time. So something like that may be the way to go at this moment, rather than, because there is so many other needs for this money. And the big deal about ARPA funding is people really want to see affordable housing. Affordable housing requires infrastructure. This money is so unique. It's the only federal funds that have been that you are able to use to match for federal funds. So you don't want to spend it all on projects if you have to, you know, are eligible for a multi-million-dollar grant from the water fund, and you need a match. You want to be able to use ARPA funding for it, because then you're not asking the taxpayers to add additional dollars. I mean, that's the real unique thing about ARPA funding. So we've been frugal in terms of how much we spent at any one time to see what, waiting to see what the infrastructure project that is about 60% done, according to John, what it's going to cost, because they're going to give us estimates for, the different parts of town and what it would cost to, put in wastewater, which means you could put in housing. So we're trying to, keep it, so that there is money to match and we don't have to ask the town for a huge, taxpayers for a huge, because we're going to look, after this discussion, talk about what it's going to do to a $4.5 million building that we knew that the town garage was going, but we didn't know how fast, because we were thinking it was like 4 or 5 years down the road, but it's now.
So you are thinking in your mind, though, you are thinking that includes a lift. It isn't just getting into the building.
No,
Right,
no.
it can't be, right?
No, it's a lift, Tom.
I think I can add a little bit of clarity. First of all, thank you for supplying the grant for the library. Now, you're talking about that there was a previous plans for the library other than this 740.
Yes, there were. There
Yeah.
were.
Now, there's multiple.
There were 3 plans, yeah.
There's 3 plans, but there's no previous plans that you're talking about.
I don't think so. I mean, we've talked about it over the years, and I know it's come back and forth, and there was even some question of who's responsible for the building. Finally, the town decided that the easiest thing is to say the town takes the building.
Okay, I think I can add a little bit of clarity. Looking back at those 3 different plans, the reason why we submitted this plan was, let's just say some of the lesser plans was 500,000. Sure, it got us a bathroom, but we had to take away a 10 by 10 area. We had to move the stairs, so we lose about half of the first floor
So I think
for books, and then so we lose half of our first floor. We can't access the second floor, so because there's the stairway and floor loading. So it was put to us, they're like, you can spend $500,000, but then you're not going to have. You're gonna spend so much per square foot. It makes no sense because you're not going to have any use of the building left.
as I recall, the one with the lift was the most expensive, and that was it was $250,000, not $500,000. But
Sure, we would love
But
to
what-
visit that and come
and-
up with some kind of forward plan.
yeah, some kind of folded together, whatever, because
Okay.
obviously we have to work on the building. That's now we have something that says we need to work on the building. And how you can fit whether it's a new engineer has to come in and talk about how to fit ADA accessibility, utilizing some of the original ideas, or what, but it needs to be a little more constrained for the taxpayers, because they supported ADA accessibility for the library. They did not support this larger project.
So are you asking us to revisit you again with revised plans for a step process?
I don't know if we want them to, I mean, who wants to do it is the key. I mean, and that
Well,
really,
the library board, we're very eager. We have a great bunch of volunteers, so we could undertake that.
I mean,
A
we
lot of the
have those
studies
plans.
have already been done.
Right, we have
Right.
the plans. I mean, I have them on in my
The
draft.
Septic permits
Yeah.
already in place. A lot of things are already in place. but
Good.
Maybe we can piecemeal this together.
yeah, and look at the priorities and give us a priority list. We can do this now for X dollars, and next year, maybe it's this for X dollars kind of stuff.
And looking back on the timeline for the ARPA funds, is there a time that's going to sunset if the plans?
Spending will you should have things probably dedicated by the end of 2024 and spent by the end of 2026, although there's questions whether a lot of the smaller communities will meet that, so they may extend that deadline.
And I think I forwarded previous from the structural assessment we had, what the immediate needs are. I've already forwarded that, but I can.
Yeah, I know
It's
we
in
have,
there, too.
we have,
I know I remember skipping
Yeah.
it.
yeah, we have, it's
The free, the foundation.
the
wall.
uncontrolled
Yeah.
surface and roof drainage,
roof
the concrete piers that support the front porch.
Yeah, I guess basically what, looking back at it, first of all, looking at the foundation's in decent shape. But the front wall and back wall are bowed a little bit. They said those can be repaired and you don't have to jack up the building, you small section out at a time. The craftsman can do that, not a big deal. They can repair that without having to lift the building. The second would be putting proper stone around the building. First, to keep the mud from coming back up and ruining brand new paint job we got.
Yeah,
So I've been asking for years to get some stone put down on this, where the water comes off the building. Inside that stone, the drainage stone, we need to get some kind of piping and drainage system to get the water away from the building.
yeah, they talk about, the roof drainage is a big deal, it's a, that, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, if we could take care of those, then, the person who did the assessment, they also were hot on the front porch.
Yeah,
The front porch, just because the two cement pillars in the ground that the front porch sits on, they don't go down very far. So they frost, they heave, and the actual porch kind of moves up and down when it wants to.
oh, wow.
It's separated from the building a little bit, but the LED flashing, that also moves with it. So the water is not entering. the
It's
building
fascinating that the
at-
lead, that it moves with
So
you.
there's no water intrusion
Oh
because
my
of
gosh.
that front porch. So that's something that we have to monitor if water was getting in there.
Yeah,
So the front porch, it's sound, it should be replaced, but if we're going to be doing some kind of other access, I don't know if it's worth. We've had the decking put on, painted, the handrails are all in the front. So I don't know if that's kind of a hot item right now. Water's not getting inside the building because of that.
now can you get into the belfry, because she, said it was, difficult.
Yes, there is, then as we walk up. The first floor, the structural loading for the books is fine now. It has been in the past pressure treated columns underneath the first flooring. Some areas aren't supported, but most are. So that could be used a little upgrade. The second floor
Yeah,
has no other supports in there.
Right, and
other
that's-
than the pressure treated posts
Yeah.
that are in the first floor, and they help support. And we try to limit that to maybe 20 people up there at a time. Kids' activities up there, STEM activities. People are up there all the time, but not many people are up there.
I mean, we'd want to be able to have as many people as we could, right? I mean, we don't want to have limitations, especially if the building becomes more accessible and inclusive. There is an issue around, how many people can actually be accessing that second floor space, which it could be a great meeting space for committees and other groups in our town. So, I mean, that is a long-term issue. Like, if you're gonna start doing all these things.
it's long-term though.
Yeah, yes.
So it's not something that you can need to address now, because we do have other facilities that act as community meeting places and stuff.
Yeah, and I think, Catherine's been growing our after-school programming and
Yes.
our programming, and
Yeah,
she has to limit how many young people can actually be part of these programs because of safety. And so when she's, doing these after-school programs, there has to be a limit. And also, there's just in general safety issues with the second floor. So I think we have to look at that, like the big picture. You can't just, when you peel away, there's like much more serious issues. And so I wouldn't feel that comfortable knowing that the second floor, like my child is on the second floor doing a program and it's not really a safe place to be.
well, she talked about different ways, but having a new two-story building is not going to happen for a while. It can't. There isn't the funding for it. That we're going to be asking the taxpayers for a lot. We're trying to use what we can with the ARPA to do, to provide more housing. So what you need, it makes sense to do as much as you can with what the building is itself, and then, figure out how to phase if you want things phased.
Well, I think we're also in the same kind of timeline or procedure like the town is. You want to have federal matching, right?
Mhm.
We can use these funds.
Yes,
There's probably 5 that I can think of right now that are matching funds and so forth. So we can keep on compounding that.
Right.
We might get a
Yes.
pretty good chunk of that already established.
That could.
I mean,
So we can
Right.
snowball
And-
that 100,000
Right.
and make a lot of things happen.
and that's essentially what we were coming here tonight to know is like, what is it that the town can commit to the library? Now that we know there's $100,000, we can now use that when we are continuing our grant writing process.
Right.
We didn't have any expectation that this whole project was gonna be covered by the town. It's asking for a lot, right? And housing is definitely a priority for our town. That said, we now at least have a number that we can leverage with grants, with matching grants and move forward with that.
Yeah, if you could do that, good for
And it's
you.
worth saying this highway department building, which nobody ever sees, especially now that the dump's closed. Nobody knows what goes on in
No.
that building. It is a nightmare. It's an OSHA violation from the top of the list to the bottom.
Yeah,
They don't have drinking water in that building.
no,
I
no.
mean, you could have a list this long of really serious things that I'm embarrassed to say we only recently became
That's
aware.
right,
of
we
the
only
extent
did,
of.
we just recently, I mean,
And so it's
And-
not just specifically this request, it's this other thing, which is massive.
Sure.
So it, we gotta take on debt to figure that thing out. So that's sort of the context for us to be thinking about this other stuff, though some of the needs in the central library do sound urgent. I mean, ADA, we should have figured that out 10 years ago. And
yeah, at one point,
the drainage, we've talked about it about 15 times.
yeah, we have.
So there's no excuse that it's taken so long. Those
When does the
particular.
Bulger Hill
Appreciate
drainage
that.
go into, when does that Bulger Hill project?
It was stopped once and I know that Linda, their planner, has been working
Yeah,
on,
we have we got a $35,000 QUISP grant to re-engage design discussion. And the first stage of which will be to meet with neighbors, which I understand didn't happen when the first design was put together.
So I guess the long and short of
So
this,
the question is whether we need to tie that in with the drainage issue here.
well, some of that clearly will be helpful once Boulder Hill gets, because it does come down.
Well,
but-
we can get the town engineer to come out and see, and they can see, look at the grading, see if a daylight drain could possibly. even
That's true.
work somewhere.
That's a simple
So, 'cause
one.
The town owns the land all around it, that building, so maybe we can put an ask in and say, hey, is this even feasible right now? Just to get some of that water away.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
great.
thank you.
Yes.
$1,000 is a good amount to get
Thank you.
started.
Yes, thank you.
We're thrilled to hear
Yeah,
that.
but that was.
We are thrilled.
Specific to your request though about the town engineer, that would be limited to the drainage issues around the library at
Yep.
this point.
That's what he does.
Dragging this into, let's now deal with going up Bulger Hill.
No,
No,
this
that's
is
not what I
just
heard you say.
The water away from.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
So this is a good start for all
Yeah,
that.
good stuff
Yeah.
for everybody. I mean, just to say,
Yeah.
Jim,
The majority of the water that's flooding the library is actually coming from town road that's not properly managed and maintained. So just by following the off the state book for how to manage your roads, you would mitigate significantly the amount of water. Bulger Hill Road now has a berm on either side because the grader is not operated correctly to pull the sides back in. So all of the water sheets from my driveway all the way down to the center and floods the center and erodes the road all the time. So Better Back Roads manual, if the road crew was following that manual and operating the right equipment the right way, it would significantly mitigate the water. And there's plenty of money available to stop the dirty water from getting into the wetlands and stuff. So this is a very doable project if everybody came together. And I offered to pay for bringing the town engineer out to walk the road with me. I've got 45 years over there studying the water, dealing with it in the church, in the library, on the common, as well as on my land, which is upland to all of this. And I was refused. The meeting was held and I wasn't allowed to go. So I'm suggesting a collegial, cooperative, integrated, and I'll pay for the engineer's time to come out and do this properly. Because the town is really liable and responsible for flooding this property. And what you spend each year on that road, on that equipment, because the work is not being done correctly, would fix this in 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
you guys have what you need for tonight?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you very much. That was, I mean, I'm glad you did your, the It's really a lot of nice new data. Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
coming in.
Thanks for your note.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, Catherine, or what do
Yes.
do you go Catherine or Kathy?
Oh, kind of both. Either is
Because I
fine.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because we're spelled the same. Are you planning on doing anything for April 4th with the getting the glasses in?
Yes, so we already have solar eclipse glasses. I got a great through a grant. We have 500 of them. And I gave away around 10 prior to the eclipse last weekend. But I'll start advertising that.
Because I imagine a lot of people,
Yeah,
are going to want to do that.
yeah. I just didn't want to start passing them out too soon because I thought people would lose them before.
I'm sure they would.
I would. But yeah, probably in January, I'll start advertising it a little more. And I really want to prioritize people who are actually in Jericho, because I know
Oh,
in
yeah.
the last total solar eclipse, people were traveling all over the country to get in the path, which we're in, so.
Yeah. I know, because it's the first time in quite some time that we are in a really good position.
Yeah, yeah. it
Yeah,
would be
maybe I
really
need to set up an Airbnb.
Yeah, you should.
That's right.
You could make a
I'll
lot
go
of
stay at
money.
my parents' house and then just turn the farmhouse into a.
You got stalls in that barn?
Yeah.
How did you get a portal that delivered that fast? I saw it outside the library.
Well, yeah, so it was Jeff's idea to call the company that delivered, that has the porta potty outside their Center Country Store. And they said that they could, they said, when do you want it? And I said,
What's next?
it's delivered.
Oh, yeah.
They got it yesterday at like
It's a long
yeah,
evening.
7:30 this morning.
Sarah, I didn't get up today. I have a lot going on, but I will tell you, it sounds like.
Yeah, he's, it's so cool.
Great.
Thank you so much, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Nice
good
to see
Yeah.
you again.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Yeah, I hope the library qualifies for one of those MRF things, because that will help too. Yeah, fuel switching, municipal energy, fuel switching program or something like that. All right, Mr. DeVost, you're next, finally. You've been very patient.
Thanks for the opportunity. First, I just want to say to Wayne, thank you for your service on the board, and the community definitely has a great deal of respect for you, and you've done an exemplary job. So
Thank you. I
thank you
appreciate
for all you've done. You got to bear with me. I'm just a layperson. I'm not an expert on water infrastructure or anything of the like. I'll just try to give it a very brief background if I could. I live on Milo White Road. Several years ago, the well that serves 16 to 18 houses stopped working. We had to get a new well. We got a loan from the state. Again, I apologize. I don't know
So that the new well was a few years ago?
several years ago,
Several years
and I apologize. I don't have exact dates. The good news, the loan has finally been paid off. I think the loan was roughly in the category of about $50,000 or so. Since then, there's been many new houses added onto Milo White, and of course, no one knows where the water resources come from for that whole area. So there's more of a strain on, I would imagine, for the whole area, for Milo White.
Did more
So-
people hitch on to the existing system, or no, there's just more people in that area?
More in that area, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Quite a few new houses or renovated houses up top, and then a very large house put in recently on Milo White. So the question of infrastructure, I guess my concern is if ideally, if the board would at least consider grants for the water entities in Jericho. And this is a ballpark figure, but it would be 10,000, no more, as grants to help these water systems such as ours, which is extremely small, which can create another financial burden on the neighborhood for adding existing maintenance and structures to it. So that these grants could be used to, an example would be used to put in a generator, if you will, or something. So I guess my another concern is that you have you have money in the ARPA, if I mispronounce whatever system, that it is going to go to different parts of the town. There's going to be infrastructure projects underway from that money. So I think it's only fair as citizens, as taxpayers, that every water entity, especially since there's no united front, if you will, for water in Jericho, that each small fraction of that money be applied toward these water systems so we can make improvements and upgrades without just continuing debt into our water systems.
What is the structure of the ownership of this well?
It's
Is it a co-op? Is it a business? What are you the president? Is there a president? How's that work?
Well, no, a good question. No, it's the Jericho Heights Water Co-op.
Which is on the map.
Again, roughly 16 to 18 homes. There's a small board. I'll be honest with you, there's one person pretty much running the whole show right now. The board, we're all not getting any younger. There's no interest in people getting into it. And so the board
That's a concern.
could face collapse, if you will. And then I've checked with the state, there's simply no recourse. What happens when these co-ops fail? The state doesn't automatically take them over. And I don't know what the town would do, to be honest with you, if that happened. So
is this system sophisticated enough that you're assessed based on the volume of water, or is it everybody pays 1/16 of the total operating budget or something simpler?
Right, there's yearly dues, and right now we should be finally going into the plus. Before I moved into the area 20 plus years ago, when I found out about the water board, it was pretty alarming to find out there was no rainy day fund or anything, so nothing was built up. So everything going forward, just you have to simply get a low cost loan from the state or whatever the water, whatever it is, Rural Water Association, whatever. But anyway, I just think it's only fair that a small amount be given out from the ARPA funds to. And it would be strictly, the devil's in the details, it would be strictly regulated. It would be, say, if we wanted to put in a generator, for an example, I'm sure there's tons of other things because the system is antiquated. It goes back to the 1960s and 70s. So if we put something in, wherever we would make that request for, once it provided the grants in place, if it didn't meet the guidelines, if we couldn't prove it was going to be done in a certain amount of time, and if it wasn't for an exact improvement on the system, then no problem, deny the request or whatever. But again, so much talk is helping and assisting other parts of the town, with quote infrastructure issues. And another thing that really alarms me is when I started looking into this. The town has, I did inquire, and the town has no idea if you divide into a pie, who is in a co-op, who is under, Champlain Water District or whatever. It's shocking. No one knows. And people want to talk about infrastructure, but if the town has nothing to base on, they don't even know who has water where. Going forward, I think the town is asking for serious problems. And another factor, I understand many in the town own private wells. I've gotten feedback, good and bad. Most, to be honest with you, don't care. I've got my private well. You people have your own problems or whatever. Good luck or whatever. I understand that mentality to a degree, but this is ARPA money. It's meant for the whole town. You can look at sidewalk improvements. I went to a planning commission meeting. The meeting was on quote infrastructure. And what did the meeting, the central part of the meeting turned out to be walking points. How long does it take her to walk from point A to point B? And when the consultant spoke, he acknowledged the water systems, if you will, or whatever, but it was so brief, it wasn't essentially a topic on infrastructure for the town of Jericho. So I don't think we're trying to speak for others or whatever, which I shouldn't, but I don't think we're asking for a lot here. There's small grants that would be used to improve structural equipment, real infrastructure that serves water to our neighbors. And
An individual, now, you came in as somebody in a neighborhood co-op.
Right.
What would be your thoughts about an individual property owner
Because that's most of it.
wanting,
No, good question.
wanting my $10,000 for my generator on my property?
Oh, no, I agree. It should be, the devil's in the details. It would be somehow, I would guess, as like a sliding scale. In other words, if we're asking for 10,000 for the generator, which is not enough, or whatever, if you have an individual well, you're only serving one or a family, then you would get
It's prorated.
an X percentage, yeah, or something. That's the best, you know.
Because most people clearly are individual wells based on the map.
Well, I'll be polite.
Yeah,
no
I
one
mean, that's this map shows,
Well, I would argue most of us are on city water.
well,
Yeah,
most of you are city water, right, but the individual wells are scattered everywhere.
Right, but nobody,
Because this is the map of all the,
no,
and you're right down there. That's you.
Yep, I receive a small dot on the map, or whatever, but yeah,
But this reflects the various fire districts, water districts, or and then this, as Wayne said, is the one where people have actual water, and that's the blue up here, because you have this area is all Champlain Water District, and then this is the Underhill Water District, and that's essentially city water.
right, and then again, their maintenance, their whatever they pay for water bills is covered for things that a group of homes cannot simply afford.
Right.
Or whatever, and again, keep in mind that, and with all due respect, the town doesn't know what is what. Could you or anyone here on the board or anyone here tell me how the pie is divided in Jericho? I mean, that's the frightening part. There's no listing of who has what for water. I mean, nobody knows.
Well, I mean, that's what
Every well is
Mark.
listed in some.
Yeah.
I beg to differ, John, did you not send me an email saying, Bob, look this up, find this out for yourself?
I wasn't willing to do the work for you, Bob.
Right, okay, so,
You should
okay.
contact the water districts.
and I did.
I'm not
Right.
I don't have the time to do the research.
Oh, okay, infrastructure, water is not that important of an issue?
Oh, no. It's-
Okay, so what is the answer then? Please, you tell me if you know.
The specific needs.
No, but can you answer the question? Can you tell me how the pie is divided in Jericho? Who has what for water? Who has individual wells? Who are on co-ops? Who are?
Sure, we know.
I think you can kind of tell from that
Map?
spreadsheet and that map.
But there's no numbers. With all due respect, nobody knows.
Go find the numbers, call them.
Because the water district.
Well, now let's get back to the
Yeah.
request.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because Bob's request is consider using ARPA funds
For,
to help out some people who may be having some infrastructure
yes,
issues. That's what Bob came here to talk about. So
Right.
let's get back to that.
Yeah.
I frankly am not, I agree with you, the devil is in the details, Bob.
absolutely.
I am not opposed to us considering, and I won't be around possibly for the vote long enough, but to consider the creation of, or at least release a little bit of this once in a lifetime ARPA funds.
right.
Because God knows I wouldn't support it if it was coming out of the regular budget. This is like sugar daddy coming down the road, throwing money around. If we could put enough parameters around this, it's gotta be neighborhood, it's gotta be for these kinds of equipment or whatever. I would at least, the devil's in the details, I would be at least willing to consider that. I'm a little wary because then every Tom, Dick and Harry who has a single well could say,
Okay,
hey, I want a new pump.
we've heard that when it comes to
So,
septic.
and where does that go afterwards?
Yeah,
after
we've
that?
heard
So-
that with
Right.
septic too.
Oh, no, and I understand.
I mean,
I'm not opposed to, and originally, when Bob first approached me on this issue through some emails, like 2 years ago or something. And I'd said to both Catherine and Eric, if there's some cost for preparing for the loan, the zero loan from the federal government, we don't want to loan money to people, because especially when there's a federal agency that does that. If there's some kind of preparation cost, like Bob's got a survey, or Bob's got to pay for 45 minutes of an energy use time
Engineer.
before
that's
it
what
gets
you're
to the
gonna have to.
application, I think that would be an appropriate use of that money, just to sort of help the neighborhood.
Well, that's what he's asking. I mean, I think that's his primary
So
need right there.
That's the
Because
question.
he was talking about, is there enough water for everybody up there? And that's where you need the hydrogeologist.
Yeah, so I can appreciate, I've been in both of the situations. I've been in the situation, well, right now I have my own well. Just had to replace the pump. So that was fantastic. But I also lived in the foothills, right? So I understand, we had like 70, I don't know how many people are up there, 80 houses.
Roughly about 85.
And
Yeah.
just
yeah.
getting people to run for the board on that was,
Yeah.
was tough, right? And there were 80 homes.
Yeah.
I don't like, and I when I lived up there, I would like, I'm like, could you please just connect us to the main, like, can we please, like, so I would have been if I still lived there, I could see advocating for, please connect us to Champlain Water District. Like, it would just be so much easier. I'm sure they all have their own problems, but it just seemed like it would be easier.
That's what Jericho
it's just-
East did. They paid for it themselves.
Yeah, and so, and I remember thinking through the, like, I get it, there's a river in the way, like, I get it, but, so when I think of like how to help with that, you know, and I get it, Milo White's probably a little ways from the closest point of Champlain, but
Oh, my God.
it's hard to,
I think MMU.
it's hard to imagine how any amount of money is going to help that, you know, like, to me, I think the way you help the most residents is to do that connection.
But realistically, that's not going to happen. I mean, you're talking millions. The
Sure,
Champlain
just like
Water-
it's not gonna, I mean, it's not gonna
It's-
happen for where I live now either,
Right,
right? So.
MMU is the closest, I think, to us as far as water
Yeah.
or whatever. But, you know, again, if other projects are going to be funded by the ARPA funds around town, you know, you've got one of them probably being a beautiful sidewalker trail from the elementary school to, you know, Mobs, you know, whatever, not Mobs, excuse me, Riverside or whatever, you know, all worthwhile projects, but infrastructure and water is a basic. I mean,
Yeah, no, and
Yeah,
I get that
we
point,
just
and
said
to your point of the devil in the details, you know, if you had something very specific,
Yeah.
hey, this would really help our board if we got, whether it's a generator or a secretary that you could pay for 10 years to deal with collecting the bills and whatever.
Yeah,
you know.
that's-
Wouldn't the revolving loan fund be better though, because then the money could be used over and over again for people rather
Yeah,
than,
I mean,
because if you're gonna
everyone
use a
has-
grant,
Yeah,
then if you set just a specific number, this is
But-
what we're setting aside for grants, and then it's gone, it's gone.
But
And not
loans are,
everybody gets.
Yeah, but then now with the town of Jericho's in the business of servicing loans.
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if
And-
that's something we want to do.
I mean, the thing that worries me is once you start helping with ARPA funds with infrastructure or sewer waste or whatever the case, layman's terms here, or whatever and stuff like that. I mean, you're getting in the business of water in the area, and you're in essence going to deny another part of the town or other citizens a fair share, or not even a fair share, a small fraction share to provide water into their homes. I mean, you know, I understand and I agree mostly with, you know, the affordable housing issue, but you're going to have to put money down that's going to be part of one way or another, septic, whatever water system. The town's going to contribute that to that degree. And if we can't have a tiny, small fraction to improve infrastructure that the town has no part of, I mean, I think it should be fair to all citizens and provide at least some money around that goes around evenly so we can make improvements. That's all. I mean, we look at these big projects here, you know, the co-ops are small or whatever, and affordability is always a question, if you will, with dues, if you will. So just, yeah, it's a small fraction for small improvements, one time only. I would agree. I mean, in a perfect world, you know, get the pipe from, you know,
Yeah.
Champlain, get it over our way, but that's like 10 years and $10 million and we
yeah.
do X amount a year and we move it 100 yards. I mean,
And there is
I
no
wish-
there is no more important utility than
And
water.
that's right.
yeah,
None.
I mean, we had water tanked in, I mean, which cost more out of our pockets. I mean, I don't know if ever any of you have experienced no water in your home for weeks. I mean, you talk about this, the septic angle of it, yeah, cooking, bathing, whatever, you know, it's a difficult situation to deal with or something. So we're not asking for free money. We're just asking for the ARPA funds, I believe the entities are only about 4 in number. And I guess the one that gets tricky is the Champlain Water. I mean, do you give them money because you've given us money, if you will, so.
Or you do get a new assessment every couple of years when they're upgrading something
Yeah.
or they're
Yeah,
building up in Milton and you've got to pay your fractional courts.
yeah,
Cost
Yeah.
down here of that.
I
All right,
mean,
Jim.
so anyway,
I'd
sorry.
like to suggest, having listened on Front Porch Forum,
Mhm.
that I was part of the TIP district at exit 16 at the Water Tower Hill. I think you have a process, a structure, and a method problem that there isn't someone, and I think maybe there could be, in the community that when a citizen has a problem, we have a fire protection problem in Jericho Center. I can't even count how many times we brought that up, but everybody loves the village center. It's 250 years old. And if one of those buildings lights up, the fire protection for it is on my property, and I plow to the hydrant that we put in with the fire department, maintain the bond despite the agency and natural resources. I think we have a problem because we don't have a method of resolving the communication. There could be 16, 17 people here who, if at 500,000 a pop, is $9 million on the grand list. The governance agency, the town, I believe should be the methodology by which you find structure, which requires the 17 users to define what the facts are and then apply some structure to it so that we don't end up with individuals frustrated and competing with one another. That maybe it's the economic development corporation and maybe they have some staff, but this problem is solvable with good quality communication, definition, structure, and process. When I came here 46 years ago, the first thing I encountered was no water 3 days after we moved in, because we were on the community water system for the village of Jericho Center, and I still use it today. So I think there's a solution here. We just need a process agent, someone who understands how to define a problem, how to develop the facts to determine what the best way to approach the problem is, and then who are the people that could possibly solve this? Because it's all about communication. I can see many good ways that this could be solved, but I've watched Bob flail for years on Front Porch Forum, and I sense that could have happened tonight. Thank you, Wayne. The word you were looking for is seed money. We would seriously consider granting some seed money
That's what I've said, yeah.
to facilitate the structure and the process of defining what the problem is, what the possible solutions are, and how you might go about it. There is somebody that knows a little bit.
Well, I think Bob's request was a little more pedestrian, which
Right.
is I need some money
For
because I
this-
either want to buy a pump, I want to
Right,
buy a new well, or I need to do some drilling, whatever.
right. It was.
That's what his request is.
Right,
Not to develop necessarily a process for, it's just like, are you
Yeah.
guys open to that? And I'm just saying with certain parameters, and I've said this to you before, yes. But, you know, we need 3 of those people to do that, and they're a little more ambivalent about it. So I don't need to say any more about
Right.
your request, but I appreciate the pickle you're in. And I do
Yeah.
say, and I did express this to Tyler, I never followed through with that assessment of our wellheads. This is an apocalypse waiting to happen. We are so used to just the water flowing as much as we want, and let's just hitch it up to Lake Champlain, just like they did out in the Colorado River, you know, and everybody's like, the solution always is more, get a bigger pipe, yeah, but if water is the most essential utility, these people are struggling. He's worried
yeah.
that it's gonna shut down, and there's
Yeah.
gonna be 16 houses without water. So,
And
if we can set up some ground rules to throw them $5,000 or $10,000 so they can try to get ahead of it a little, I'm for that, as long as we make it one shot. This is ARPA money
Oh, I understand.
from the rich man, you know, from the federal guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Not otherwise, this is a one-time thing that I think with those parameters, at least I, again, I'm now beating a dead horse,
Yeah,
would support that, but otherwise.
so we'll have to discuss that.
Okay.
We're not gonna make a decision tonight.
Oh, no, I understand. Again, I apologize. Sorry if I,
No,
but it's
no,
just
you
been
did
a very
fine. I mean,
frustrating,
you did perfectly
like-
fine.
I was in a village once.
Yeah.
This person screwed up. Think of this, this was up in Himalaya Mountains. Family screwed up. They did something against the culture of that village. They were banned from the community well. They had to walk. I met these people. They had to walk 5 miles a day to get their water and then walk back to their village. And to me, it just underscored how profoundly dependent
Yeah,
and how we take this whole thing for granted. And when Bob first brought this up, I'm like, this is a little different. I'm on city water. I don't care how much I use. They just turn it on as much as I want. He's
you
in a
just have to
different,
pay for it.
he's in a different, yeah, but even
Yeah.
when I pay, it's like 2 cents a gallon. It's just nuts how cheap water is.
Right.
But he's in a different spot.
He's in a different spot.
So
I mean, the,
Wayne's talking about 2 cents and I've just literally just got done paying for this new stupid well. I had to put in.
yeah.
anyway, thank
Yeah.
you, Bob, for coming.
Thank you. We
Appreciate
appreciate that you coming
Could I
to.
just, is there any definitive timeline that where a decision may be, I mean, I know the ARPA funds are there for.
Yeah,
some
we
time,
haven't,
but,
we're talking about community discussion,
you know,
community projects in early 2024.
You
Okay.
gotta come back in 2 months.
Well, no, we know him, his issue, but he doesn't have to make another presentation. But because right now we're moving in, we've got the big job in front of us with the garage. And then it's budget season. We're probably not going to do a whole lot of ARPA spending between now and January.
Okay, but it is on the burner.
It is on the burner.
On the burner, that's.
It's in the middle burner.
No, I understand, I understand.
You know, because you got the 2
Yeah.
here, the 2 here, the 1 there, and 2 here. So it's in the middle
No,
burner.
okay. Okay, well, again, thank you. all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
So, now we have a biggie. Discussion with treasurer about funding for the highway maintenance building run. You know, we actually started wanting to have an assessment prior to COVID. And it, you know, it was actually a year or two before COVID, and then it fell apart. And so it's a good thing that we finally got one done, because things are in much worse shape. Because I read the report and I read your last week's minutes and stuff.
I
Last
think
month,
after those I-beams
yeah,
were fixed,
yeah.
it was on our radar for a couple of years, and then
Yep.
we got into COVID and all that other
Right,
stuff.
because it was like really on the radar, because Todd had, you know, set up a thing to actually get ahead, you know, get one of the structural guy in. And
So
all,
just real briefly, we were at one point when we were concerned, Brian, that there might have been some issues at the town highway garage. And at one point, the select board had said to you just very informally, oh, when's our debt gonna be due and, you know, paid off for the town hall? And you said, well, 2029. And all of a sudden we were like, oh, okay, well, if we had a big deal and we waited till then. And so for a couple of months, we were thinking, you know, maybe we should wait. Then we get this horrendous report
right,
with these violations.
yeah, it's really interesting
And also
because.
there's urgency to this whole
Because
thing.
even before we have, around the, I guess it was before the time we had to fix the beams. But we did an audit of the garage, and we actually insulated and did things according to the audit to make it warmer in there. But all of a sudden, obviously the building just rusted out on us.
Yeah.
Even after we put the insulation in and everything else.
So you've had a chance to talk with John. And
Yeah.
what sayest thou?
Yeah, just one side comment. I was at a budget meeting at work today, and I said, you know, budgeting for the town is so easy because all you do, you just come up with what the expenses are. You manage the expenses. And then all you do then to get the revenue is, okay, here's the bottom line divided by X, and there you go, right? But the problem that I see here is there are absolutely the resources still are limited. Somebody sits on top of your shoulder here, looks and says, you know, I don't want my tax bill to go up and I want it to go like this.
Right.
Right.
And so in doing that and doing the due diligence, you have to manage the expenses.
but still provide for the need, and that includes the town garage. And that includes making that acquisition, which is expensive, which is $4.6 million. Again, I took the numbers from the study. And then finding a way in which you can manage it so that it doesn't, your tax rate doesn't go like that. So.
Yeah, how do you do that?
As part of the
Especially when you
background.
have to build it in one. This is not one that you do in pieces.
So what I had attempted to do here was, with that background in mind, the idea of tax rate was, okay, if it costs $4.6 million, what is the route? How do we pay for it? And obviously, the real source of funds here is the Vermont Bond Bank.
Mhm.
And Ken Lynch has been really helpful to us. He's been available to us, and I spoke with him. And he corrected something that I'd sent out to you folks earlier as an initial draft. One of the things he pointed out was that this is a serial bond. It sounds like.
Cheerios.
It's a Captain Crunch sort of thing, yeah, right. But
Oh, that's even better.
what that means is that it's not a straight amortization. And if I think back to what our bond is for this building, we make a set payment per year. It's 20-year amortization on this building, and it's $60,000 a year. The total was 1.2. And so I had to apply that here, and I just had forgotten that. So you can see here, I'm trying to carry out this principal payment on an annual basis. And again, that's taking the 4.6. And in this case, just for this case, I use the 30-year amortization. And that's important because we could go to 20 years. 20 years, the payment, it would be about 18% more. We won't go into the details, but let's start with the 30-year. The quoted rate from Ken, the most recent rate, is 4.75%. So applying that rate and going out over the duration, the first payments, well, the payments will decline. And again, because the principal is set on each year, and the interest will go down as the principal amortizes out. So first year, the payment is $375,000. Well, what does that mean to the tax rate of the town? And again, the whole idea is to carry this out and to see what the net impact is. The 23, I have to remember what year we're in. The 23-24 fiscal year, the total revenue generated by our taxes was $2,927,000. I'm in number 3 here. And so if I take the 375 as a percentage of that tax revenue raise, that's 12.83%. Our municipal rate in the current year is 0.52980 per 100. And so bumping that rate up by 12.83% gives us a new bond, a new tax rate that that's the 0.06797. That's the actual increase of nearly 13%. So then just multiply that times $100,000 per $100,000 valuation, and it's about 67 or 68. I'm in number 4. About $68 per 100,000. So on a $500,000 home, the first year increase would be $340. Now, because this amortizes out, the principal does on a straight $155,000 a year. Next year's rate goes down by about 2%, and and so on and so forth. And you can see again with the total payment of that, it's small dollars, but it does go out. But the next important thing, and you brought it up by Catherine earlier, is the idea is that in 2029, the 60,000, while it's with the interest, it's about $65,000 a year. That goes away in 2029.
And if we slide up just a little bit, John, we've got the net effect. In 2028-29, because this building, the renovation is fully paid for, the $340 goes down by about 17%. So the timing would be favorable if indeed by 28-29 it would go down by about $68. So then the increase per $500,000 property, I guess that's the litmus test now. It would be about $67 less. So that's just an idea. That's the sensitivity of putting in a town garage at that cost. I'm here to present the facts. I'm not here to
Can we
say.
have all monetary expenses presented in this way for everything that we do? This makes it so much easier. This makes it so much easier to think about. You know,
What it is, it's a metric. It's a metric that we can tie everything back to the
yeah,
tax rate.
and I get it. We could do like I could figure out how many tax bills goes out, right? Say we've got 1,400 tax bills, and you take everything divided by 1,400, and well, there's your average.
But
it's nice to see.
But it's per 100,000, so it's easier to, to do or anything then.
Yeah.
I think it's a good measure to carry in our minds as we go through the budgeting process as well.
Yeah.
Well, I was also surprised reading the report that we have to special order the boxes on the trucks because they don't fit.
That was my biggest, that's my biggest takeaway too. I was like,
that's
are
an
you
extra
kidding me?
cost. That's an extra cost.
I didn't know we were doing that.
I didn't either.
Wow.
That's an extra
Yeah,
cost.
so they come standard 14 foot. So they don't fit. So we have to special order, we have to pay more to get a smaller truck that doesn't carry as much stuff and make more runs with it because
No wonder they were.
that was a fascinating piece of
Yeah,
information.
really was.
It's nice to know that Ascent put that in there and identified it
Yeah.
because otherwise.
Yeah.
How would you find out something like that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first year it's 340. And by the time we get to 2029, it goes down to 280 or 245.
Right, that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to keep a road crew, I mean, you really have to do something.
Yeah, well, first we've got to get enough people to see how horrible it is, like the eyewash.
That's the thing, right? So this would. We probably need to at least consider getting it on the next ballot, right?
Absolutely.
Considering the condition, right?
Yeah,
So
it should be on town meeting ballot.
it would be on a ballot and then the taxpayers would have to vote on it and then we start it. So
you have to educate.
So year one would be
a blip.
25. So is that first year? I know this is all hypothetical and you're running some numbers, right?
Yeah, that's why.
But this bond ends at a specific time, right? This ends 28.
28-29.
2029.
Yeah.
So
we're doing the budget for.
So you either have, depending on when it all happens, right? You either have 1, 2, 3, what's that, 7?
Because this will be fiscal year 25, which means it'll start in the middle of. It starts July 1, 24.
That gets so confusing that we're in 23. The calendar says 23, but we start talking about 25.
Because we're in fiscal year 24.
Yeah, what I can do, and I just didn't want to inundate, but I can, and I do intend on creating a theoretical long-term debt term out, if you will. And because we have a number of trucks, the loans, but those tend to replace each other as we go on. One comes out, the new one comes in. So I can turn that out into the next 10 years, for example, just to get an idea of what the total debt payment is, including interest, the servicing cost for the next 10 years, just to get a wider picture
of
what this looks like.
Yeah. What is You said the current bond rate is what, 4.8?
4.75, and
And what's the one that we have now? For this one? Do you know what this one is?
because it's a serial bond, it
Oh, it's a little.
it
it's not
goes up
apples
and
to
down a
apples.
little bit.
Okay.
But the interest on that bond is so little now because the principal is
It's all
fairly
principal.
small.
Yeah,
Right, but I was just curious to compare to the last time.
The rates have doubled past 4 years.
Right, but I don't know what they were 20 years ago. Or are you
Well,
saying that it goes up and down with the rates?
It will
because
go
it's
up
not
and down a
fixed-
little bit because they are in effect reissued.
Oh, okay, got
So
you.
there's some current rate sensitivity. And Jim's right, the rates have certainly gone up.
Mhm.
But they're still half of what mine are.
Right,
Mine right now is 10.25
for what? For,
commercial loan
Yeah.
with 2,000% collateral.
And keep in mind that one of the benefits to, well, let's talk the process real quickly. The bond bank is, as we know, I think most of us know, is where a lot of the requests for funding are pooled.
Mhm.
And so every 6 months, the state goes out or the bond bank goes out and issues these bonds. So what we would do, I should also add a point that big reason we get audited, we have our audit done, is so that we can go out to the bond bank. Because when you go to get funding, your status is enhanced by having a third-party independent audit. So
oh, that's good.
it just doesn't, so don't think it's not worth something.
Good.
So, but the other thing that I want to point out is that every 6 months, the state will go out and sell the bonds or issue the bonds. So, and they go out, actually, John, it may be one of the second or third attachments. I think that might be, or if you scroll down, I think it's there. If it's not, I can hand it out. Yeah, this one here.
Keep going.
So that one, and I'll hand out a hard copy. It's
Oh,
might be
great.
hard to see here. But that gives you the dates, an indication of what happens and when. So if there was any issues with, let me put it this way, if we missed the opportunity for the 6 month, it comes up next. You know, if we were to have an issue or a problem initially, perhaps getting the approval, which is required by the town, then we just get on the next boat. So
We do it during the 2024 November vote.
right. So as Ken explained it well, and I think it's pretty much there too. In mid-May, May to June, the board is approved for funding in July. So we would need to get on board in spring to make sure the bonds, the vote is approved by the townspeople to get on board for that funding in July.
Well, doesn't it work then if we do it for town meeting? I mean, because that's the most logical way of getting.
Without a special bond vote.
Without a
I
special
don't-
bond.
I'm not sure.
Could you are you allowed to get in line in anticipation of getting the vote? And then if you don't get it, it'd be just treat.
Sure, but understand the dollar amounts that they are issuing. And I asked Ken, well, Ken, isn't there a cap, a limit on this so that if there was too much sent in it at one time, you had to wait outside the door and couldn't get in line? He said, no, there's not a cap to this. Just get on board and they'll include you in the next 6 month finance issue.
Right, but so you could, I'm not saying we need to do this, but just thinking through options, you could get in line, voters turn it down, and then you just get out of line, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you're advocating for a special vote then? Well, not.
I don't know how that-
If we vote to do this, it would,
Political question, his is financial.
That's
Yeah, his
a,
financial-
that's a legal question too.
We wouldn't, so I'm losing it. We wouldn't need a. Right, so we could get in line. Now, is what I'm saying, and then,
Let me think. As I recall my experience in this, it's not a, hand vote. You really,
it's an Australian ballot, yeah.
yeah.
That's why I
Right,
was
but I'm
thinking,
just
that's
saying-
why I was thinking
I'm
town
saying
meeting.
you could get it, you could do this part with the assumption that you were gonna get a yes. And then you got a no, and then you just back out.
Back out, yeah.
Right, so I don't think
There's-
you would need a special election. You could do it at,
Town meeting.
I mean, I think like we've said, we need to get this in front of the voters in town meeting, which,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying, we could get in line now and like, oh, sorry, we don't have any money for. Sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. Again, I think
Just a minute, Jen.
one of the steps is to just get engaged bond counsel.
okay,
And that's a fellow named Eli Emerson is the fellow that's recommended to me, and we dealt with Eli when our water district obtained some a loan recently.
Apropos.
I refrain.
When's the last time we would, assuming that we would be facing an increase of $340
plus
on
whatever.
500? When's the last time we had that kind of jump in somebody's taxes?
We have to go back a few years, but I think we have had that. And we actually, in order to mitigate that, because we had enough in our unrestricted general fund balance. Because it's not recommended you do it very often because people then do experience a jump when you run out of money to play with it. But if you have enough to still meet your, keeping that 15% in unrestricted general funds, you could take some money out of that, put it into the budget so it's not quite so hard. And we did do that, I think during the last recession.
Just to
That is a
feather it
good
little
point. I
bit.
forgot about those general funds, and I do remember we looking at them during budget season and found they were plenty
Substantial.
substantial.
One
Wait,
of
now he's so good with the word.
But you need
But
15%.
you could, but
You should keep
I
at
mean,
least 15%
keep
for
coming back to the
emergencies.
dates. So the loan runs out in 28, 29.
Mhm. This will
We
start,
are starting the budget season of 24, 25.
yes.
yeah, that's right.
So it's 3 years. It's 4 years.
It's 3 years before
4
we
years.
get that 17% break, if you will,
Right.
before the $67 break.
So could you bridge, my thing is, could you do what you said and bridge that 3 years?
Probably
Not
not.
for all of it,
You-
not for the 300.
You can do that in a couple of ways, and one of the ways in which we could do that is, as you say, it starts with a 24-25 budget cycle by saying, okay, what are the expenses that I have? Some of the elective, and I'm not suggesting this, but I think we budgeted $295,000, I think, for paving, for example.
Right.
If you elected to defer a small portion of that, and you're not going to do that if the absolute need is to do the paving. But that's the dollar amount which we've tentatively set aside in the budget for this next fiscal year. So you can elect to do those sorts of things, which is very close to what you're suggesting, Eric. There are
Right,
ways
and-
you can feather this.
And depending on when, like your chart was great, but it was probably pretty rounded as far as when that would assume that the bond started on the day one of the new budget, right? So your first year you might have 8 months of that budget season of payments, right? Or is it like a yearly?
It's interesting. Generally, the first interest payment comes ahead of the principal. So that, in other words, you make that principal payment once a year.
Okay.
So, if, for example, it could be November every year, or it could be May every year.
Sure, okay.
So you're right about the timing for that first go round. It may have just the impact of interest only for that first time.
Right, so I'm just saying you could find ways of utilizing what do we call it? The reserve,
The unrestricted general fund
the
balance.
general fund, you could find ways of doing that I'm not saying to make the 340
No.
go to zero, but to
No.
maybe make it go to 200, you do that for like,
You do some belt tightening in other departments.
Right.
Or you
because
do it
when
for
you
the-
have something before the voters, you want the budget to come in. This sounds terrible, but you want the budget to come in at 2 or 3%. You don't want the budget to come in at 6 or 7%. And you're also asking for a bond vote. So, I'm Joe taxpayer,
Yeah, that's a good
and I
point.
see that the town government, they're going up 8% because of Essex Rescue or whatever, and that's real.
Yeah,
And the same year, they're asking for me to pay another $340 a year for taxes for the new highway department. So there would be a couple different reasons
Right.
to really do some belt tightening, like we're not really gonna do a whole lot of paving, or we're not gonna hire the planning commission person another 4 hours a week, whatever the thing is.
It's a matter of prioritization.
Yeah.
yeah, But I'm just
because
saying if-
remember, sometime between 25 and 26, you're gonna have to have that 170 million for Bridge 15.
so I'm just saying that having that bridge. in-
170,000, excuse me.
What?
170,000, that's it. They're
saying-
paying the 2 million, whatever it is. Jim?
Can I offer a constructive comment? I think that we're talking about being in a business. And I think it requires, when we talk about these types of monies, because this could land easily on a 10% increase because of the school budget. Because we have a 30% reduction in student population, and we've got significant increase in healthcare costs, significant increase in interest costs. So this whole thing could blow up. And I've watched town after town that don't start at the beginning. This is a business. First question is, should we be in it? Second question is, how should we operate it? Third, we have resources and assets, and in this case, a significant piece of contaminated land, the landfill. Well, guess what? An awful lot of commercial businesses really need, whether it's the contractor, the snowplow guy, we have assets. So the first thing, if I'm looking at an expense as a businessman, what revenue stream can I tap to offset this whole thing? And that's how we look at it in a business. Should we be doing this ourselves? Should we be subcontracting it? Should we be maybe offering this facility and stuff? Because just think about how many trucks we have running all over Jericho because we've never done a capital needs analysis on the municipal services.
Are you suggesting we just hire all this out? Is that kind of what you're getting
You
at?
absolutely have to look at it, because if you go to a public meeting and you haven't done it, you will be confronted with that issue.
Right, but
But
I mean, is that
There-
even feasible? Are there towns that just go like, we'll
Well,
just get some, we'll find someone next spring, it'll be
Well,
fine.
it's really hard to find contractors right now. I mean,
Right.
you really have to have them in their pocket. Charlotte is one of the few towns that actually has done that. And it's the only town that, in Chittenden County that I'm aware
Yeah.
of that actually has a contractor do their roads, but they just had to buy a brand new garage for them. And they're spending 3.5 million of town dollars to
Who is this?
Charlotte.
It's interesting because Ken mentioned that Charlotte just put up a town garage and.
It's 3+ million.
Yeah.
And the voters went, said, okay. Because.
Yeah,
I don't think what I'm saying is as hard as you might think. And I think it would make the path that you're gonna walk down a lot easier, because Catherine's correct. You have a model with most of the figures in it in Charlotte, where you have a road commissioner who's an independent contractor.
You should see the amount of money they put out every year too, for him.
And Jay Hutchins, used to be one of the guys that ran one of those things before he started Hutchin. So this information is readily available. And these companies are looking at all these issues, but I'll just tell you as a businessman, watching our trucks drive all the way to Johnson when there's products in much closer proximity. And if you're bringing really heavy stuff, you don't use rubber tire tandem trucks, you use trains. And you get together with Richmond and you get together with Underhill and you come up with a really good plan instead of spending $125 an hour driving an expensive truck and crowded roads. So if you guys did the normal business strategy plan for this, which could be done for you if you had 2 or 3 commissioners that worked in your public works department, said, how could we do this? I was over in the pit in Bolton, and all the towns are reserving their sand because they only work a certain number of hours or days a year and stuff. So nobody's looked at this stuff. It's all been done by personality and relationship. And I've been watching it happen. I watch the roads get destroyed because the shoulders are not maintained correctly. I think you got a great opportunity to find a person that's done this type of work, that's semi-retired or half-retired, and do a study for you to help you with this. Because I can assure you, the people who would propose to build a building, and I don't know that you even are close to what the actual cost would be, because if you build a whole new building, where's all the equipment that you're going to put into it? And a whole bunch of other stuff. So I think retaining a skilled business planner with experience in infrastructure like this and capturing all those studies will make this into a much more pleasant, fun project. And then saying, oh my God, we have a resource that almost every contractor around here would love to lease space from you, where they could also access your salt, sand, and other things, and put a big plan together, and you may be able to offset a good portion of this expense.
Thank you, Jim.
End of story.
All right, Brian.
Last thing, cost sequestration. When we're looking at these types of things, the municipality gets no benefit from depreciation or investment tax credits. So therefore, we look at sources of financing that want to buy those commodities for us, that reduce the cost of the capital.
But if you could run a town business, a lot of this would be easier. We have municipal.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Sorry to be a pain in the ass, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
it's okay.
I don't see you before you leave. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
I think he is really sorry to be a pain in the ass. If I'm the only
See you, Jim.
I do. Back to the topic at hand. Thank you.
Good.
Anyway, I was just saying, there would be a little bit of opportunity to utilize some of that general fund money, which I think is a little inflated. I understand I haven't been in town government long, but it seems a little hefty based on a couple of questions I asked you to begin with when we first started. It might be a good way to bridge us, even if it was just, hey, what if we did that and we made it about what it's going to be like once this bond drops out? You know, I get it, $17, but whatever. You know,
Like phasing the project, is that what you're talking about or no?
no. So you've got these 3 years, these
Right, the
you got
overlap years.
so each year you take a little bit of that fund, you use it to offset. Maybe you offset the amount that's going to come off for those 4. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
then it's
So basically, you're budgeting a deficit.
Yeah, okay.
And that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, the
and you could use that thing for other things too. What
Yeah.
I mean, you can't predict all the stuff that's going to come up. We don't even know what's coming out of this budget season.
And
But
quite frankly, Charlotte, if you look at their numbers, they're buying. The guy said, I'm not going to work for you anymore until you build a garage. So they're building, they bonded $3+ million for the garage, and they pay for all the stuff, just like we do. And then they pay for this guy, and it's not any cheaper.
Yeah.
It's not any cheaper at all.
Yeah, intergovernmental agreements are difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, like, you know,
They have a really good senior center.
Collaboration.
But they turned down a recreation facility to Hatchet. That was, it was another small bond, but they turned that one down. That was about $3 million too. But they paid $3 million for they did the garage a couple years later. And Milton's garage, I think, was around 5.
Were you suggesting? You weren't, but I'll put words in your mouth. Were you suggesting it might behoove us for this to wait until November of 2024 rather than let's get on the stick and do that at this town meeting?
No,
He wants it this November. As
You
a,
want it this November?
no,
That can't happen.
Oh, gosh, I didn't even think about this.
That can't happen. It's too soon.
no.
Yeah.
Understand that there's a bit of marketing and selling that probably has to be done.
absolutely.
But I think that if there's a good side to the fact that, when you look at the pictures in the report, the good side is there's a story to be told. And maybe, again, and I think that's going to give you the time frame in which this will happen more than anything else, more than, for example, trying to time it to get into the lowest rates and the rates aren't going to change much anyway over the next 18 months.
Because December
per
is
anyway.
the time that the bond bank goes out again, right?
Yeah, that's 6 months
So we won't make that one at all. But if we had town meeting, we might make the next one.
yeah, I mean, there's a fast track time frame in here. Again,
But not only do we have to sell the need, we've got to sell the financing too. So, and I'm not, I don't feel like we're there tonight, but.
Not tonight, no, but
That's part and parcel of selling it over the next, whatever the interim is between now and when the actual vote is.
well, yeah, that's the next homework for me to do, is to say, okay, where are we with the available general funds, the cash that we could conceivably use in the short term, for example, to help subsidize
that
the
bridge
tax.
here, I think that's the good point of putting it, and then it at least because you've got increases in salaries and everything else, all the different stuff. And
There's another thing too that I would suggest, and that's once the audit is just about completed, whatever surplus there is, and I think there is one, let's set that aside.
Oh, that's true.
And so
It
that's,
doesn't even go to the unrestricted. It could be set aside for something
yes,
in a reserve fund.
that's one way to, and I'm thinking, my preliminary numbers that I have, and I think they won't deviate too much. It's about $80,000 surplus, not this year, but from last year for ended June 30th. So
Maybe you throw $100,000 of ARPA funds in.
Well, I mean, that's
As a political thing. You just say, we threw a little money at it.
yeah,
You
exactly.
can do the rest for affordable housing, whatever, the new.
Well, that's what I'm
decides,
thinking
but at
too.
least there's a little bit more and people say, oh, you used a little of the ARPA money. Okay, that's a nice idea. It didn't really cost you a whole lot.
That's why I've asked, I asked John, I guess you could ask Amy or Brian to find out how much ARPA funding we have left, because we've allocated 100,000 for the library, and see, because I also thought about using a little bit of ARPA money. Yeah, because you want to make sure you save some for those.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is as much about the optics.
Exactly.
Of saying we threw some of this ARPA money there.
Yeah.
As the actual.
And that might be what we do this year, rather than even take unrestricted general fund balance. And, take a chunk of ARPA to make that number look good.
Yeah.
Because that's why you could do, that's why you're allowed to use ARPA funding to match federal money, because that ARPA funding was to be used to replace revenue lost during the pandemic that you would have had in your normal budget.
yeah, and there are ways we can work that through and create basically unrestricted fund balance by running it through the actual activity for the year.
Exactly.
I mean, my point in coming here was to say, okay, here's how much, here's the impact. And the next step is to say, okay, how can we create as much of a level
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that's a good cut. You're right.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways we can look at it, come up with the smartest way to implement it, but that gives it, it's so helpful to just see it as.
But there's a great picture. I mean, the book tells a great story. I mean, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years now.
Yeah, we've made a point to do that.
So, I mean, it's not like it's going to be a total surprise to.
But the financing, it seems like this bridge period, as you said, that's your next piece of homework, is to how to even that out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's more manageable for households.
Because we know the budget's going to go up anyway, just because of the cost and salaries and stuff,
And then was it you who are being end of the world? There was another year or two and there was gonna be some financial thing that was gonna hit us like a 2x4. Who was talking about
I think
that?
that's Jim.
Oh, maybe it wasn't. I can't recall. I just thought there was some kind of.
Yeah, well, because he was thinking that there was, I mean, and Jeff Carr from,
Oh, right.
he thinks that, there, because all this extra money is not going to be flowing, that, although the economy has grown, so I mean, there's some balance there too, but, there isn't going to be this excess of funding that's available. Like right now, they're throwing all kinds of money into broadband. There's all kinds of money in the Wi-Fi, which is the correct money from the EPA for all kinds of water projects at a very low cost loan for 35 years.
So what's the next step for the select board? Sounds like Brian knows what his work is.
Oh, this is the whole big.
That's
Sure.
the entire amortization schedule.
The whole enchilada.
The whole enchilada. So the total debt servicing is how that is reduced on an annual basis up through year 30. Versus interestingly, the straight amortization, which is normally what we all have for our mortgages, which is a straight annual payment.
Right.
And the difference and the compounding effect of money is so apparent here, looking the lower right-hand corner where, again, the upfront incremental cost saves you about $660,000 over the life of the loan.
Wow.
It's always make that extra payment a month when you have your
Right.
mortgage.
Sometimes I get really fancy about looking at it like, okay, if I put $100 extra, how much does I get the payment doesn't change, right? But how much more goes to principal? And it's just interesting to see, like, even at the, I have really good interest rates compared to now, obviously, like most people do, but like, even at that, it's like, wow. I'm not saying I ever actually make the extra payment, but I'm trying to motivate myself to do it. But
this is the 30 year. The 20 year I could also do, and that saves, well, if you want to do 20 years, over 20 years, rather than 30 at the same rate, it would save 1.3 million.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Now, the first payment of a 20-year mortgage is $433,000. It's an extra $60,000.
Which is,
It's something to look at.
yeah, we should look at it. I mean,
We should. If for no other reason than due diligence to show that we did have a couple options.
I don't suppose it's anything like a mortgage where you could take out the 30 to have the option to pay it at that, but also pay more if you wanted to.
If you want.
Like, could you do that? Like, I know you can with mortgages. I don't know how this stuff works.
I'm not sure, but I'll find out.
Because I'd rather have the option for 30 and
try to follow the 20.
And then like you get a year, we're like, ooh, boy, we got a big bump this year. And then, all right, well, we're going to do the normal 290 payment instead of the whatever.
Right.
Well, because it is a serial bond, I'm wondering if that's not possible. It might be possible.
Yeah. Who knows if we'd ever end up doing it, but you start with it on year one, right? So you take the hit right off, or you phase it in, maybe you do the 30-year payment for the first 3 years, right? And then you go to the 20-year payment once
Right,
this bond
right.
drops off.
Right.
You know, you play games like that.
Yeah, absolutely, because that way you know exactly what you're working with because you've
Yeah.
already reduced one of the debts.
It's interesting, if it's a difference of $60,000, that's the payment that
That's
we're
the
making
payment,
for
yeah.
the town, so go 30-year the first three.
And then instead of lowering everybody's payment by $17 in 28, 29.
Yeah.
You just pay this off in 23 years instead of
And you save a million.
save $1.5 million or whatever, or $1 million, yeah.
Million, yeah. I mean, and that shows that you really are doing your due diligence.
Yeah. And then you have more buffer,
Yeah.
right? For like, well, we're paying this at a 20-year rate, but boy, you know, we had to for a couple of years to get
And-
something else.
I have no idea what people's appetite would be for this. This
I
kind of
don't-
bond.
I don't know.
I mean, I would vote for it, but I'm sometimes I think.
Yeah,
upset.
I think I would, I mean, I'm trying to think if I was not involved in any way, what would, if I saw that report or a summary of that report, I'd be like, well, what are you gonna do?
I mean, think about,
You know, like-
you also think about
Like
how much that lawsuit could be.
true. And I would just think like,
And it's not for a rec center or something that might be considered discretionary. It's
Yeah.
for something.
yeah,
Different
if I'm a citizen, the main thing, and I don't pretend I don't follow any of this, which is not 80% of the town.
Police,
Like,
fire and highway. That's all.
yeah, like it's my road plow, like how the roads out here, yeah, they're usually plowed pretty good. And so then next thing I would think would be like, they do a good job, we should probably take care of them. Like I think that's how I'd like to think that's how I would think about it.
I
if I
think
was-
Jim is
yeah.
only one of the few people that really complain about the roads consistently. I mean, he's the only one, because lots and lots of other people over the last few years, ever once Adam came on and started doing his thing. I mean, people have really talked about how nice the roads are kept and, you know, that they're really taken care of well.
Okay.
And, you know, and John Streeter's doing a good job following up.
There's one other item too, that should be addressed, and that's the old building and whether there's incremental cost with that old building, keeping it, or what do we do with it? And we just
Right.
can't let it go. But I mean, it's interesting. Jim had lease it out. Well, maybe.
Well, the consultant said
He
to
recommended,
keep it up.
yeah,
I mean, he never implied, and you could rent out a bay kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he recommended cold storage for existing equipment.
don't heat it, don't insulate it, but you've got
Cap
some
the
dry
water.
storage for.
Yeah, cap the water.
Yeah.
I mean, so that people don't even think that there's an eye wash station or a bathroom. In fact, as he said, take out the bathroom.
Take out the plumbing, disconnect it, and then you've got a,
Cold storage. I mean,
Cold
so if anybody wanted cold storage, I guess you could rent it out, but
Well,
But-
what if the town sold the building? Is there any net to that we could apply to the new? With the idea that someone might turn it into storage?
now would that my question was, because I, didn't know where he found where it was on the land he could do it. But would that impact how our own road, if it's rented out, how would that impact what our
I
road?
don't think it would. I think you just go further up the driveway toward the solar field, and that's where the new garage would be, so.
Oh, is it? Because you went with him, that's right, or,
Well, you could tell by the map, that's where he was thinking,
Oh,
just opposite the solar.
I just read the thing, I didn't look at the map. 'Cause I knew it was pretty bad, okay, but that's good. Yeah, because that's still our property.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's something to think about.
I would have pretty low expectations of anything happening with that, but
yeah.
it would be easy enough to put an ad in the Mountain Gazette or, something on Front
Affordable
Porch
housing.
Forum and see, we can at least, but I just can't, who's gonna do that? And once they're there, okay, now you got
then
trucks.
now you're a
and
landlord, now we're a
got-
landlord, and
You've got grease,
Yeah.
and fluids around that you don't know about,
That's true, that means we could be responsible for even worse
you're going
brownfield,
around the back and you're dumping your stuff.
because that's what he would do. I mean, some people, we know that there was somebody who would do that. I know somebody who would. Used to do it. on the snowmobile.
Thanks, Brian.
It sounds like you're gonna figure some more stuff out, and at some point, the select board will need to vote on whether to bring that forward or not.
Sure.
So it depends on how far ahead you get, whether we vote now or not tonight, but you know, whether it's the next meeting of November or early December, but we have to make a decision by mid January, because
Right.
that's when the warning comes out and whether things go on the ballot. Because it's usually around the anywhere between 22nd and 25th that you have to have your
That's the drop dead date.
so.
We'll chat
Thank
some
you.
more on, you know, understanding what the legalese is, and I'm not sure at what, meaning, warning the vote and the Australian, but can it be done and at the town hall and all that stuff.
That's true, because it's a bond vote, you know.
They get picky about stuff like that or something.
One would hope that they would allow you to do it at town meeting, because it's Australian ballot, I mean. Rather
Easy
than,
to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that way we're not.
I would think it'd be a line item on.
Because we're not incurring any extra costs then, because it would cost us to have an extra, it's like $5,000 to have an additional election.
Does it?
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oakley dokley, we are now, boy, this was a tough night. Welcome back. I'm gonna
It
have,
was an easy.
Tough night. It's only 9 o'clock. What are you talking about?
We've got hours to go, Cap.
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna have
Be
to,
here until
I'm,
midnight.
I know, we probably will, but I have to. There was so much activity here, I couldn't get up and stand and walk around.
Oh, right.
It's theoretically, I'm supposed to do that every hour and a half, but that goes down the tubes pretty quickly here. We now have select board updates.
Let me start.
Sure,
Okay.
sounds good.
So we have four candidates that have responded to the inquiry around filling the interim select board position. So that'll be up to you and Eric to decide who of those candidates you want to forward for on the record interview looking to our next meeting.
And so would that would be in public? I assume we do it in regular session.
The interviews would be regular session, yes.
And we how would we warn? Would we warn and say select board candidate? Would we like list their names? Like how would?
Yes.
Yeah.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
In the warning?
Yeah, we can list their names. I didn't want to share any of that.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense to share them now, but I think if we're gonna do it.
Yeah, because it needs to be, I mean, in fact, and then we need to have a sheet, that both of us have that have the questions. Because each one should have the standardized questions. You're asking them the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like somebody got
A free ride. Or
Yeah, that's a good point.
They're gonna want,
Do you want to draft those? Do you want help drafting those?
I think help drafting is good because it's been a long time.
And they can't be too like, if it's during a regular meeting, we can't ask them that many questions.
No, but it has to be really, good questions, and what they're bringing to the table, things like, I mean, because the public wants to know, the public needs to know who these people are.
Sure, yeah.
Are they, do you anticipate anybody who comes to the meeting that night could ask them a question or no? 'Cause that seems like, I don't know if you'd want to go down that road.
I don't know, no, we could even
Next
have.
thing you know, they asked somebody this question, but the next candidate didn't get asked any.
No, you don't do that. Fact is, maybe we do that as the first half of a regular meeting and we make the rest of the meeting very, very short. So it wouldn't be an executive session, it would be just the interview time.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is a meeting and.
Yeah, I wonder if we.
Be there or be there?
No, the public would be
No,
there.
I mean me.
Oh, you could be there. You should be there.
Okay.
We'll take every last minute we can with
Because,
you.
I mean, I don't mind doing that, especially because I'd still be on, but
yeah,
I
I
don't
think
want
you
to.
could even vote to see who,
Whatever you think is politically in the best sense of the word. it would be the thing to do.
Well, when I was interviewed, it was John Schulenberger was sitting right there asking questions.
Oh, okay. Well,
And he was the one leaving.
Yeah, he was the one leaving. when-
And he was a lawyer, so,
Yeah.
all right, that sounds good.
And they laughed because instead of doing an email, I gave them a letter on Italian paper because we had just come back from Italy. So-
This woman has style.
That's exactly right.
Very stylish.
Bring us a dry red or a sweet red with that application.
I know. So I mean, it was, made easy, but they interviewed in public and it was a public session.
You're right, it'd have to be short or it's just gonna be
Oh, yeah.
really hard.
So you have four people and we have like maybe four.
It's just so weird to interview for a job in front of your fellow candidates.
Well, we
It's
do
just
maybe,
weird.
well,
So when you did it, were there other people there?
to be honest,
Ah.
the fix was in.
Sure.
The fix was in long before I interviewed.
Sure, but
I mean, that's the honest to God truth.
Okay, well, be careful what you're saying.
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
I mean, it depends on,
yeah, it was.
it could be.
But since then, we've been honest about everything because people used to,
Transparency, it's all about
it
that.
really is, because up to that point, I didn't know that that's how it was done until after it was done. But they would drop out early, get somebody in that they liked, and then that person ran for election. So that there was a ton incumbency going with it.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
too bad.
and then after Bob Penniman left, we said, that's it. Everybody,
yeah,
you run on your own, you come in on your own. And so,
I'm just kind
so
of
you-
imagining like
well,
the
you're
fourth,
right.
the fourth person to go is gonna be
maybe-
like, well, I've got a way better answer than
Yeah, they
Catherine
do
had.
have a kind of an advantage.
they do,
Yeah.
well, maybe,
Well, it could be a.
They wait in the other
situation where,
room.
Yeah, people are scheduled for a specific time.
right.
But then it's a public meeting, so the rest of the town has the opportunity to listen, but they don't. It gets so confusing.
Well, I mean, the public should be the one listening though, shouldn't it?
I fully.
I guess,
I
yeah.
fully think it should be in public, and then the second I start thinking about like the logistics of it, I'm like, ooh,
Or we could give candidates the option whether they want to be present for other people's interviews or not, or whether candidates would feel comfortable having other candidates.
well, we can think about that.
I think realistically, what you're talking about is that does set it up for the last person to really take time,
Park, yeah.
because he's taken all the good parts of everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, you
having
have
a,
to be the first interviewee.
having,
You always want to be the last or the next to last.
so, scheduling at a specific time and then they're only in,
Sorry, your 10 minutes are up, Mr. So-and-so, and then.
Yeah.
yeah.
1 minute, half hour.
And we
response.
keep them separate from even zooming or something. They take, because you can't let
Well,
them.
it's a 3-month appointment, so I don't know how extensive, and then after that, I'm assuming people.
Well, then they got to
will
think
run
about
around
starting to run, right, in
Right,
January,
right.
so.
Yeah, so it's
No,
really
we
only,
should do a speed dating thing. You would have the same questions, and we just cycle people through.
yeah.
And people watch, watch.
They only get to write their answers, okay? What do you think about being on the select board is the most important thing? Go. And you play the Jeopardy music and you see what they were.
Now, that's one way of doing it,
Right, and because then they can't influence each other,
right?
and then you'd be like, okay, and then, I don't know,
So
it's just so weird.
I like that idea, though. I think that the Jeopardy way is a good way of doing it, because then it's all here. Or the other way we could do it is, it is,
We could do it just like that and have it be real and be like, we would like you to come, we would like to interview you for the board.
Mhm.
And we would like you to answer these 4 questions.
right, and bring
And
them,
then everybody has the exact same format,
Ahead of time.
and then they
Ahead of
come
time.
in, and then And
Remember,
then,
that's what we
and then we ask questions based on what they say. And so
Yeah.
then our questions are,
Follow-ups. in a way.
are follow-ups to what they said, not asking the
like that.
same.
I like that because that's kind of like what we did for John.
Okay.
Because
So-
he had to write,
That's
in
right.
2 big questions before he even interviewed.
Yeah, and so they can keep it to themselves until they come here, but then. It's still gonna be a little bit like the 4th person could still ad lib and be like, oh, I didn't think of that, and. There's only
It's not
so
gonna
much,
be perfect.
there's only so much. you
But
can
that's
share.
that's the most transparent, but yet fair way of doing it for 4 people.
Right,
Yeah.
because they have time to think about it ahead of time. They won't have as much time to change their answer. I mean, they could, I suppose. The 4th one would be, oh, I'm gonna change that, but whatever.
No, we collect it.
Well, what I was thinking is they
No.
would, is just like as if we were interviewing somebody for any other board, right? Like, tell me why you want to be on this
Catherine
board.
wants to check it for punctuation.
Anyway,
You missed a semicolon right here.
yeah, you expect to sit on this board?
I knew that English literature degree would help someday.
But no, when they come in, they give us their written questions. And then you have them in front of you. They can't change them. But as you said, you ask them follow-ups based on what they've written.
Yeah, that seems good. They have an opportunity to do some homework at home and.
Wouldn't you want the questions submitted in advance?
Oh, absolutely.
What am I missing? So.
So that we have them already here and they can't,
Oh, I see, right.
and they can't change them.
Right, you've already digested.
They can't change them, and then we say, come on, and then
Come up with
maybe we ask them to
follow-up
read them. So that, I don't know.
No, we don't ask them to read them. You just do follow-ups so that somebody.
But the townspeople should know their answer, like either
Right.
we're gonna have to read them or they're gonna have to read them, so the townspeople can know their answer to these questions.
Well, see, these questions are just questions so they can see the answers, but then in the minutes, you can put the actual, what the questions came from.
Mhm, mhm.
Because that way this is trying to make it as fair as possible for the first person.
Yeah.
And
Sorry to be all this trouble.
no, I mean, I can understand.
I try to-
When I was, that first couple weeks when I was like pretty much toasted in the brain, I went, why am I putting myself through this? And I get these emails and I see stuff from Jim and I go.
Okay, next select board update is,
Yeah, so, we have so the sign that was taken out by the, Jericho Market has been ordered. So
Okay.
that'll be, you may remember it was hit and dragged and
yeah,
was in need of replacement.
Ordered,
Now,
oh,
this could be the biggest news of my recent history. We have a new dog warden.
we do,
Wow.
congratulations.
Lord.
Maybe I'm jinxing myself. I think she's completed all of her paperwork with Paula. If she hasn't, she's in the process.
Oh my gosh.
Her name is Olivia Aaron. Olivia is a dog trainer. She runs a her dog training business revolves around helping people turn their dogs into trail dogs.
Wow,
So hiking, biking, ski dogs,
Oh.
and helping with that type of training.
wow.
Oh, wow,
And
that's
she
cool.
is also, she lives here in Jericho. She
Was
is,
that right? It was on record.
She looked at the
I'm sorry.
compensation.
I just dawned on me that we're still recording.
oh,
Right,
That's why we were,
right. We're still recording. So compensation, was she
Yeah.
made aware of and she
Yep.
was okay with that?
yeah, so we outlined the annual
Duh.
stipend and all the position, all the circumstantial pieces. So there's a specific amount per phone call, engaging with owners, mileage. There's a fee for accounting that should be paid. Yeah,
I kept,
Can you click on that 3? The bottom.
just the chat,
yeah, there's nobody.
that's just the chat,
Okay,
there's nobody, who's
YouTube's on,
There's nobody
YouTube
on.
and MMC TV's.
Oh, God, I just screwed everything up. Oh, well,
That's all right.
everybody's, Oh, well, it's been a long time ago.
Totally understand.
And
All
I
right,
was
so
honest.
when will we know?
We did. She's already accepted.
Oh, great, oh, good. Well, that
Oh.
is really good news.
Super good news. She may,
oh, well,
may have an opportunity to do some, receive some mentoring from Jen Sophie Katz up in Underhill.
oh, good.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Ed.
Maybe Ed.
You get the real scoop
Actually,
from Ed.
Yeah, she has a place to, the critical piece is she lives on a large property, so she's able to. Impound animals on her property. And not have to take them to a different facility if needed or any of that. So we're, when we talked a bit about record keeping, we're gonna continue to work with her and update her on ongoing concerns.
What's a number, 4 or 5 years ago, how many times during the
Well,
course of a year did somebody actually have to do that?
Interesting you ask, Wayne, because apparently the number goes up dramatically as soon as your dog warden retires. When I asked Paula initially, she's like, we probably get one, like maybe 2 calls a year. Since I started 2 years ago now, it seems like we've had 5, 6 a year.
Wow.
And again, not requiring a ton of time and attention.
Sure, just a complaint or a
Yeah,
concern.
problem solving,
Yeah.
fielding complaints.
Okay, so it's not a
Having to
horrible
send
number.
letters by way of reminder around, leashing and nuisance animal ordinance, all that kind of thing. It's taken, more time and energy than I would have expected, let's put it that way. So we're really happy to have Olivia on board.
That's awesome.
So the facility, the town maintenance
Oh, well.
building facility or town maintenance facility assessment. Has been put online. We put the accompanying clip of Matt's presentation from the last select
Oh,
board
good.
meeting there. For residents to view. And that all lives alongside of the assessment that you do. So we have the presentation, we have the full assessment and the book to go along with it, and we have the clip from the select board meeting.
Is there a way to highlight periodically, like highlight pictures and, so that people, what first thing they see is a picture?
Oh, that's a neat idea. Yeah.
Sorry, what?
Yeah, he's talking about all the stuff on the thing, but I'm saying, is there a way to, when people click on, it starts with a highlighted picture and the picture, different times there's a different picture of all those pictures of the rotten and all the.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So people,
Propaganda photos, Eric.
Yeah.
I think,
Exactly.
once a vote's taken, that would be another way to kind of push something in.
Yes.
Take a little snippet of one of those PowerPoints. And push it out to Front Porch Forum.
Right.
Don't forget, this is the water system.
Oh, yeah, you can do pictures in Front Porch Forum.
I
now.
just read about that.
Yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
tried it yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So
All right, that's good.
So the other question, I don't know if this is, if this information is ready for public consumption, but the amortization schedule that Brian shared, that might be valuable for people to be able to take a gander.
oh yeah, once we decide
Yeah,
on one.
I wouldn't dare put that up quite yet, but yeah, I mean, I think when we do it, I think looking at an example. When we start trying to really sell this thing and, really pitch it to voters. I think they're gonna need to see, I think
And we
At
should
least
come-
10 years worth anyway.
yeah.
Yeah, and we should come up with dates for the open houses we wanna do. I can communicate with you offline. But we should.
Open houses, to have people
So
go
if we
visit.
wanna, invite people to the garage to kind of see what the challenges are in real time.
Mhm.
You might wanna consider doing that either later this year or very early next year.
Before the weather really gets
Certainly,
ugly.
I'm sorry, say again.
I said before the weather really gets ugly too.
Yeah. I agree.
That's like tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like a
It's gonna
week
be
or
wet,
two.
wet weekend.
We could shoot to do a couple,
Now sitting on my back porch with a blanket on my feet, and I know, the end is near.
Yeah, it was pretty cold. That last soccer game that I just sat at, it was pretty
Yeah.
chilly.
As soon as the sun goes down, right?
Yeah,
Brian, Brian referred to the fact that the in-office part of the audit has taken place and it won't be finalized for a while, but the lion's share of the process with, Amy sitting with auditors for a couple days and having to answer lots of questions and provide documentations. Ended at the end of the last.
the financial audit.
Now, did they feel that it was a different style of audit than the?
No, that'd be kind of an Amy question. I think it was unique only because it's new. I think the more. They asked for a lot of documentation up front that they normally wouldn't have had to provide.
Ah.
So the audit that we, working with the same auditing group for a number of years in a row. It's like any relationship. I think as soon as they understand the systems we use, the checks and balances and all of those structural pieces.
Well, especially in the first,
that'll be less important over time.
especially in the first year, because the complete audit sometimes isn't just strictly the finance. They actually go into the documents that enable you to make a particular expenditure and to make sure that
Absolutely.
you were authorized to go up to 15,000 and you went to 16,000 and they go, aha, so it's a little bit more than just the
Oh, yeah,
numbers.
they wanted to know.
Oh, yeah.
All kinds of granular information, how.
And that's all healthy. I mean, it's not fun, but
how
it sounds
people
like it's
make tax
good.
payments, what options do they have for paying? Do people, drop checks in the Dropbox, or they have to be, in a, postmarked envelope? Like a lot of.
It will be interesting to see if they have a comment on the days, the vacation days. Hopefully that doesn't even, remember there was an issue with some of our days that we were obliged to possibly pay out for some of our employees. Remember?
Oh, really?
And
that might.
then we took care of that.
Right, because we
But now
actually
that's
put
this
this,
firm, it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
if they say, no, wait a minute, this, I don't expect they will.
that's true.
That might have predated my arrival. I don't.
No, because that was part of our personnel policy where we changed to.
It predated, the result predated when I started.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's why we had to go through
Right.
that PTO thing.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great. And speaking of, I have Matt Young submitted a proposal for the governmental structural audit, and I just got it this afternoon. So I'll provide you with that for review. And then looking ahead to our November 2nd meeting, you can decide whether you want to approve that and move forward.
oh,
Did
good.
Catherine ask you for a second quote?
She did.
Did
So I've
you?
got well, here's the thing. The Nemrick people finally jumped back into action, but I'm really hesitant to go that route. The sense that I get is that they're kind of overloaded and may not be able to use.
How many local dollars would be required to pay somebody like a Matt? There's no grant for that. That's all local.
It's all over dollars,
Yeah,
yeah.
so his.
You could use ARPA funding.
Transformational.
That's right, it is.
And the answer is, he had given actually 2 iterations of a proposal. One was a full audit that looks at, position by position,
Wow.
roles and responsibilities, pay scale, compensation.
We did some of this stuff already, but yeah.
So again, it doesn't need to go that deep. If the real goal is to figure out exactly what we need by way of human resource type support to meet our objectives.
And to move, be able to grow, do the grants and not feel harassed and stressed and be able to move forward, with growth in the,
So I think
Jericho.
we could make that, we could downsize the scope.
Those recommendations come too late to put in the FY25 budget. Because that budget has to be put to bed by, whatever, January 15th, January 1st.
Then,
And there's no way that this study is going to be done in time for that, nor do I think we want it to be.
Well, depending, again, smaller scope, he was talking about being able to do it probably in a couple of months in the larger scale.
Wow.
So if it were smaller, he might be able to do it, you know, December into January.
I'm probably not gonna be one of those people voting on that, but I just think for a price tag of 10, 12, $15,000, whatever we're talking about, that I wish I knew a little bit more about what was involved in the study before I approved that amount.
You'll be voting on it.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, yeah, I have the.
Okay.
I'll share that.
Yeah,
All right, thanks.
you'll be voting on it because we'll put it in the next meeting.
All right.
Anyway,
Yeah.
preview the next meeting,
Yeah,
and
or the 60, yeah.
yeah, that's,
So you,
that's all I've got for tonight.
okay,
The only thing I have, again, and we talked about it, Catherine, when you, at the last meeting, was this fitness center, and I'm gonna actually be in Bennington on this meeting for Tuesday that we had. scheduled with
Okay.
This guy. To see that Vermont art stuff down in Bennington, my wife really went to this.
oh, that's supposed to be really good.
But anyway, my point was, we don't have the land for the
Right.
thing, and we don't have somebody who's gonna look after it. And if we did, I think it could have, you know, some interest, but we just don't have anyone to pass it to. Who's gonna take care of it? And Paula can't do it,
No, no.
and the school can't be expected to do it.
No, I was, after I read the minutes and saw that in there, I thought about that and I thought, I was glad that you were there because you talked about the construction looked really good, because you're used to seeing.
Yeah,
it.
that looked good.
And, the place to put it makes sense at the high school because, as I said, it's too much of it's an attractive nuisance at the middle school because it's not for middle school kids. It's for high school and up. High school's the youngest they want on it. But given what we just went through here with all the stuff, I think that I like the idea, John has kind of mentioned it to me, and I think it's coming for you as well, is that we put some of this stuff and, come up with some kind of number depending on where we are in ARPA spending, because we have other commitments that we need to make along the line as well. To determine how much, that we send out public ideas.
Oh, you're talking now about
Yeah.
his notion about maybe some kind of
Yeah, like
committee or something.
Well,
Identifying a pool of ARPA funding that can be allocated for, discrete projects that, driven by the community, for the community.
but not a community committee.
Right, drawing committee representation.
Yeah,
from
that's
each of the
great.
Existing committees.
So we
That's a
don't,
great idea.
and then we put that there because, and see if there's interest in something like that, and maybe it will re-energize what could have been a recreation committee. And with their request, it used to be in the budget, in fact, a part-time rec director.
Right, it's $25,000 or $20,000 after
Yeah.
a couple of years.
And so that would be the person in charge of all that kind of stuff, plus maybe there might be a rec committee doing things that, you get, because he said they train people, local folks to be able to, give classes for seniors and all kinds of folks.
There could be some opportunity to collaborate with the town of Monroe too.
Yeah.
Well, they already have a committee of sorts. I
Right.
think.
But in terms of, funding a position or a person to, manage it, if that were one of the priorities, manage that and the programming that would be built around it, in addition to broader recreation.
This guy wants an answer yesterday.
Yeah, he
This is
does.
a salesperson. That's how he's making his.
Well, and plus then, but MVP.
But with salespeople, if they need an answer right now, then the answer is no.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the way you do it, right? Like, right?
Well, the fact is, I'm gonna have to tell him that at this point, because of the fact that we do not have land, we have to really work with the school district that, and we need to really.
We'll come prepared.
And we'll come and get, but I will just tell him that, because you're busy, that we won't have, I'll just send him an email saying that this is where we
Yeah,
are.
thank you, because he wrote to us today.
Yes, I saw that. So I thought I'd better write to him and say, you're not gonna be there. That that we need, we're gonna.
Don't call us, we'll call you.
Take,
Sort of what-
yeah, we're gonna, we need more input from the community before we go forward with this.
Okay, he's gonna know what that means.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
But we really do. I mean, because, here, we just talked about, money for the library. And, this is a substantial sum as well. So, and we're asking for the garage. This may not be the time to do something like that, even though it was a really interesting opportunity. But they're looking to do 5 in Vermont, and there is none currently. So it could be worthwhile to see who actually puts one in and what it's like.
Yeah.
Because then you can actually go see it. And do people use it? Because you said.
Yeah, now you can imagine, someplace like Colchester where they've got something going on, they're building a rec center. They put this 30 by 30 equipment thing and
Yeah, oh my
there's people
God.
there as a critical mass and, you could imagine actually it working.
Oh, I really
But we
could.
just don't have that capacity right now.
Because even my PT said people that she has, with exercising, would love to have something that they could go to that's free, because most of them, if they have money at all, it goes to what the PT session is. And they certainly can't afford the $1,200 it would be to fully subscribe to a gym or more like that. And there aren't that many gyms.
Anyway, that's the only thing that I did other than connecting people who might reached out to me about the opening. I did get a bunch of emails, 20, I get over 20 emails saying thank you and
That's
which
true.
was really nice to live in a small town where that could happen.
That's wonderful.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I have to report, the fitness center thing.
I'll talk to you. So I added my part of the fitness center, but as you can tell, there's a brand new installation here. It's called Trees for All Seasons. And we even have real trees, that came from real trees as part of the art. And it's really kind of a striking piece.
It's funny how many times I've been looking at that and not dawned on me the fact that it hasn't always been. It's just been
Does it look great there?
it looks perfect.
It
Like,
really-
and like it honestly took you to say that. It should have been obvious to me, even though I'm like sitting here like.
Live there for.
Yeah.
Well, that's the key. He doesn't want to make a lot of money from it. And what he does make, because he's just doing it for fun, he gives to the food bank.
That's cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, the Sentinels, I guess, have had a little more trouble. I guess they've, the couple, Dad and Junior fell down the other
Well,
day.
it's funny, we all came in on Monday morning and we saw all these pieces of wood laying out in the hallway, and there was nothing on the wall. And Amy and I both walked right by it going, must have something to do with the art opening, but modern art nowadays, you couldn't tell, should it be laying down?
That's right. That's
Right.
exactly right.
So it wasn't until Emily came in later, she's like, these are the Sentinels. She stood them back up and.
Yeah. Yeah, because I came in on Saturday because there was a couple pieces that had come in late, and I couldn't make it on Friday, so I came on Saturday, and he was available, so he came over and brought the Sentinels, and the mama was leaned into the corner, but Papa and Junior he just stood them up, and he said these should stand, and I went, okay.
That sounds like the burgers they used to have at A&W. There was the mama burger, the papa burger, and the teen burger, and the baby burger.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my gosh.
I think you can still get those in Middlebury.
Long
I
time.
think they still have roller skates at that A&W on Route 7.
A couple of years ago when we were down there, they did.
Yeah.
We haven't been down there, in a few years.
So now we're on to minutes.
Yeah, we're under minutes. Oh my God.
I just wanted to, just another reminder, I still haven't seen those speed signs out. We could really get on the road crew about getting those put out,
I
please.
talked to.
Oh, the ones in the center and stuff, or,
Well, the center ones we need to get fixed. I saw I saw the thing back. I understand we're dealing with vandalism there. I don't know what, I don't know how,
You know, we're also potentially dealing with a warranty issue as well.
yeah.
Because they rechecked them, reconnected them, they're still not working properly.
Yeah, like other
Yeah.
towns have them that work, you know, like.
yeah, they do, and the
but
other,
the portable ones,
We did, you know, Eric, I talked to Paula about that, and I think she talked to John. But I haven't heard the update.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
I don't travel on all the roads.
Yeah.
But you know,
Skunk Hollow.
Skunk Hollow, I travel on
Skunk
pretty
Hollow
quite a
is
bit,
the-
and I feel like it.
Interest.
I catch myself on occasion, like, oh, you know, I have to bring my,
Oh,
you know,
gosh, yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
I think, and I know we've heard specifically about that road. I know it's a problem on all the roads, but
yeah,
I just would like to see that out there.
absolutely, because
To
that's what
response to,
Omar and stuff too, yeah. Yeah, because because I got an email, I think we all did, from Bernie about the ones in the center. And
well,
I
yeah, I
thought,
think he was following, he must have listened or read the notes or been watching and.
Bob Shermer wants, I believe, either he or a representative from the Jericho Center Preservation Committee want to get on the agenda for next meeting to talk about speeding more generally in the center.
Can't be next meeting.
Yeah.
He can get on in a meeting, but can't be next one if we're
No.
interviewing four
No,
select board
no.
members.
and then so I answered Bernie and I said, as I understand it, we've had some, vandalism, and they have to be, recalibrated every time. And I guess people are taking the batteries or something like that because it's they're using them.
I don't think the batteries, no, I don't think the batteries have been stolen from the ones in the center. The battery was missing by the one that got taken out by Jericho Market.
But so how were the ones in the center vandalized then? Because
They just disconnected the wires.
oh, geez.
Yeah,
But of course that screws everything up anyway.
right. So I think there's a bigger issue though, because what we're trying to figure out is either they're malfunctioning and need to be replaced or warranted, or the solar panels are not big enough to actually drive them so that they're recharging for a 24-hour period.
Yeah, because the other ones,
Seems like it would be an obvious
Right.
design flaw.
the other one worked for a while, but it never did 24 hours. It was always, by the time I would leave these meetings, they were gone, when they still were working. They never did quite 24/7. So it could be just their panels. They haven't updated it for what they're doing then.
Right.
It's even worse though, because it doesn't work at all anymore. Oh, that's,
So anyway, that was just my update. I just want to, I'll just keep
I think
working
that's a
on
good
that.
one.
Um,
It's a good one. Reminded me of Bernie's. The other thing Bernie asked for though, and I think that's something we can do, is at one point, the 25 mile an hour did start where the Plains Road came in. So it started a little earlier, so we could do that, where,
Paint on the pavement.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that people know that it is 25. But I don't know how much more we can do since it's already 25. And we've got this,
Other than those speed signs.
other than the speed signs, and they did help people for a while.
Or fog lines or, stuff that formalizes the road somehow a little bit. That's
Yeah.
about all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't see anything on I looked very briefly at the September 21st.
Yeah, the only thing was something I did, and then obviously I might have said it, but that's my other update, is I gotta remind you about the repair day. But at line 167, I might have said September, but it's really October. I mean, that's actually a correction because that's legitimate because it is October. The Jericho Energy Task Force is having a repair cafe at the community center from 9 to 1 on October 28th, and it's people, there's folks willing to work on sewing machines, knife sharpening, jewelry repair, sewing repairs, I
You
think,
could actually host that whole thing right at my house. They would never run out of things.
Each take a room.
Yeah, yeah.
and so I guess I think there's also somebody's gonna look at, basic lamp repair. And supposedly, according to the full blurb from that Phil put out, is that people are looking at mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, and even software issues, and they could not if they couldn't fix it, they might be able to, put you in the right direction.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So,
including pneumatic.
It is such a good point that we have become such a throwaway society.
Yeah,
And part of that comes from labor, right? Like,
right.
if people are getting $60-70 an hour, like
Right.
this thing only costs $30. So of course I'm gonna throw it away and get a new one, but it has to be such a huge contributor to the landfill.
Absolutely.
And to waste it. And I don't know the right way I went around it, but
Yep. So anyway, we could make a motion on the September 21st meeting.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of September 21st.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then I was good for October 5th. I mean, I really won't vote on it anyway because I wasn't there, but I didn't see much.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of October 5th.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
aye.
I'll make a motion to enter into executive session.
I need to
Because,
say I'm abstaining on the minutes, so.
oh,
I
Catherine,
abstain.
yeah, so Wayne and I said okay to the minutes, said aye to the minutes. Catherine abstained because she was not here.
Yeah.
Although she did read the minutes. So I'll make a motion to go into executive session because premature disclosure of the information would be detrimental to the parties involved. These are for reasons of personnel and legal, and I would like to invite John Abbott to that executive session.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Good night, everybody.
9:55.
I know.